Yeah.
Triplicate. I like it.
We got
Hey
it.
guys,
Dialed
welcome
in.
to episode 45 of CMDTower's Brews and Builds. I'm Mr. Comment number 5 of my fellow hosts. I did not create a bit for today because I was busy at the grocery store. Big Tuck. What's going on?
How dare you? Well, I came up with one for you. I want to give a quick shout out and hello to all of our Snow Whites and Dwarves out there. So kind of burying the lead on that. But how was the grocery store? Did they have toilet paper?
They did have toilet paper, but get this. So my butt is quite sensitive, so I only do that quilted northern, like, real soft plushy shit.
Okay.
$26 a thing.
Hold on. Don't you have a bidet?
That's the price it pays to be delicate.
Doesn't that eliminate the need for any of this?
Well, you still need a little bit because I mean the bidet can get in there, but sometimes you need a little friction.
It gets in there,
and I haven't quite gone caveman enough to use my hand and then put it over into the bathtub to wash it off.
That's good. I like that.
We're off to a hot start. I love it.
At least you have some semblance of standards, so I can respect that.
But no, other than that, the girlfriend's starting her juice cleanse, so we'll see how long that goes.
Yeah.
She was shocked by the $90 grocery bill for 3 days worth of stuff to juice.
Yeah, fruit's not cheap.
Yeah.
Nope,
Kale,
sure isn't.
All that organic stuff. So
yeah. But Tuck, how are you doing, man?
I'm pretty good. Busy week at work. I got a big certification test tomorrow that I'm looking forward to being done with. I think that's kind of it, man. Just been working away. I'm trying to think if anything exciting happened this week. No, I will give another shout out because I've been doing this every week to Rock Creek Brewing.
Oh my gosh! Get over it, man. Get over it. We're done with it.
It's so good. So we did get to go out there and enjoy some patio time, but that's kind of been it. It's been kind of a slow week. I don't have much else to say about that.
a little Forrest Gump, if you will.
Yeah,
that's all I got to say about
that. Squee gave me the hookup on a place to go buy some 9mm because that's sold out everywhere. So that was nice. But yeah, no, I got. And I had a really fun game yesterday, which will be discussed a week and a half ago. Yeah, right. So however that time matrix works. So that's the big highlight I got this week.
Well, awesome. Well, guys, we've been on a tear with the guests like we did in December, then took a hiatus for 6 months. I guess this is just our semi-annual guest month, but we got the one and only CCOBrando on the cast.
Hello.
What's going on, man?
Hello. It's great to be here, guys. Thank you very much for having me.
Absolutely, man. How are you doing? How's Canada going?
Canada is going quite well. We're not quite to the hell in handbasket situation that you guys find yourselves in.
Hello.
I haven't paid $30 for toilet paper in at least a month.
That's good.
Wow.
Which is nice.
I'm actually still concerned you paid $30 for toilet paper ever.
Dude, Canadian money, man. That exchange rate will wreck you. I'm not even kidding.
Where are you at in as some people refer to it as, and I'm only saying this to piss you off, so don't take this personally, America's hat.
America's hat? Well, I like to think of it as you as Canada's toilet.
Well played.
But I am in the middle part. I'm in Saskatchewan. We're kind of right above Montana, North Dakota kind of area.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah.
And then we're just below the tree line, which is where everybody stops living in Canada.
Yeah.
There's 800 people at Donkey and 3 Moose that live in Canada. We all live below the tree line. So it's a good time.
Oh, man.
You want to hear a shout out to Rock Creek? I went to the local one here one time, and the waitresses fought over who was going to wait our table because they didn't think we looked like we were going to tip.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
How'd that make you feel?
Well, it made me feel like I was going to get a free meal out of the deal, and I did.
All right. There you go.
But it was an experience.
Wow.
And did you tip?
Advertise with us, and I can't run down people that advertise with us.
Well, and so to that point that you got a free meal, did you tip a percentage of $0?
Oh, great question.
I actually did. I did leave a tip. I did. I actually did tip the lady just to.
Nice for you. Good for you.
Just to give her one of those.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
Tipped her in Canadian pennies.
Oh yeah, Canadian pennies. They're worth way less than.
You could say cents on a dollar.
Isn't it like what the loonies? Is it like loonies and toonies up there? Isn't that right?
Yeah, we have so much change. It's ridiculous. Like the first time I went to America in my adult life, I came down and I was buying cards and all this stuff, and I was paying for cash with everything because it's just what I traveled with, so I didn't overspend. I ended up with so many dollar bills when I got back to my hotel, I couldn't close my wallet all the way. I felt like such a damn baller.
Yeah.
I felt like such a baller, and then I counted how much money I have, and I'm like, I'm broke.
You're like, great. You're like, I can't even buy a Shockland right now.
I can't even put this shit into a sock and mug somebody for more money. Like, what the hell am I going to do?
But you have stacks on stacks.
Yeah.
That's true.
So, CCOBrando, do you like to just go by Brando, or do we always got to put CCO? Is that like the Mister of the podcast?
You can 100% call me Brando. That's what I usually go. You're the first person to call me CCOBrando in quite a while, actually. So this is fun.
All right. So, CCOBrando, I have a question for you. So, why don't you kind of inform the collective, as we call our followers, a little bit about the content you and your cast does, and any other projects you may be involved in?
Sure. Well, I am on the Commander Cookout podcast. That's the CCO stands for. You can find us at commandercookout.com if you want to check out anything we've been doing. We have a YouTube channel. We are a Commander-focused podcast that recently of late, and I guess in general, we focus kind of on spicy brews and just having a good time and how much fun Magic actually is, where you're getting out, you're playing with your friends, you're drinking some beers, you're going to barbecue, you're going to just bullshit with your buddies, and that's kind of what we focus on. We've got a YouTube channel where we try and extend that out and be a little bit funnier. We have a custom drinking game that we came up with ourselves that we like to spread to the world. It's called openflippy.drinky. Check that out if you're ever wanting to crack packs and maybe get drunk. I don't know.
I'm down for that.
All right.
And I recently started my own little solo YouTube channel. It's very small. I've just been opening stuff and getting wrecked because I have the worst luck on the entire earth. It's called Rando Does Stuff. So if anybody wants to check that out and just see what it's like to actually flush money down the toilet, I got you.
Excellent.
That's fantastic. Well, guys, thanks for tuning in to our episode, and this was only able to happen by our audio producer, Squee McGee, and his company, Rich Chaos Records, here in KC. What's going on? Apparently, Beer Garden Squee.
Beer Garden Squee is the Squee indeed. I was actually having a beer in the beer garden not a couple hours ago, so it's been a good day.
What, at Stone Creek?
No, at KC Beer Co.
Oh, right, at your place of employment, of course.
Yeah, where he gets free beers. Come on.
It's quite nice when you get off work and you do some work all day, and then you go out and you sit in the beer garden and you get some free beer. It's a pretty good deal.
Then you go bang on your drums all day, right?
Yes, indeed. Yeah. Well,
Step Brother style.
I've only got a few drums, and please don't put your nuts on them. On that, I'm out.
Well, if you guys want to support maybe getting some sanitizing spray once I put my nuts on Squeeze drums, you should support us and head over to our sponsor, level1gameshop.com. They sell Magic accessories like our exclusive CMDTower playmat and Mat and Hunter Pack sleeves. And they also do have a awesome TCG player store and awesome competitive prices. And another way you can support us, head over to our Patreon, patreon.com/CMDTower. We have 4 different pledge levels, and rewards vary from just getting access to the very rambunctious Discord now. It's kind of hard for me even to keep up with it. It's kind of bananas. Plus, one of the other things, you get a shout out when you join it. We got 4 new patrons to shout out this episode. I know.
Might be a record week.
We're up to 24. It's crazy.
That's what we're talking about.
So shout out to Mike Giosa. Thank you. I appreciate it. You're awesome.
Shout.
Isaiah, I'm going to slaughter it. Not going to pronounce it last name. Appreciate it much. He's from Canada, Edmonton. No idea where that's from.
Don't wimp out. Say it.
Martinovsky?
Markinovsky?
Is there a T or a K?
T. A T and a K.
Martinovsky?
Marnotsky?
Wait, Barzanowski, our friend from high school?
Sounds like some marinara sauce.
If we didn't nail
making me
one of
hungry.
those guesses, then here we are.
Yeah, at least one of those is right. I guarantee it.
It has to be, right?
One of them. And then we do have Harley Summers. Thank you so much. I'm so glad it's now summer. I could wear shorts.
Very good.
And then literally we had one that just joined like 30 minutes ago, Ben Weber.
Nice.
Thank you so much, guys.
That's fresh.
I know, that is fresh. And considering usually people join and I always forget to check Patreon, and so then my shout outs go weeks on end. The cobwebs are starting to collect on the complete buttons.
Also, big shout out to our boy Unco AJ for dropping fire memes. Those have all been incredible.
Yes.
Oh man, Brando, this guy in our Discord, like something will happen and he'll have a meme to represent whatever happened within like 5 minutes. It is so quick, and they're amazing. Yeah, like there's a little feud going on between me and Nick the Hotness right now, because I'm of the mindset you can't have a proxy card unless you own a legit copy of one, and he got a gold bordered Badlands, I think, or something like that, and he doesn't own a real one, and I was like, that's still technically a proxy. And so literally AJ within 3 to 4 minutes created that meme where it's like the kid passes the note in class and then he has the stink face and it's like legit card and then it's my face and it's like stinky.
It was incredibly quick.
It's amazing.
It was incredibly quick turnaround. So good work there on Go.
Also shout out to all new collective. I will put the challenge out there as always. Get those names ready. Give us something good.
And then, of course, guys, if you can't help us financially, the free way is just help promote the content, whether you're viewing it on YouTube, listening it on your podcast platform, literally just troll us on Twitter. Every little bit of interaction from the collective really does help. And of course, we do love to give shout outs to the music provided in the beginning and the end of the episodes from Pink Royal. And hey, stay tuned till the end so you guys can get details on how you can win a Chandra spellbook in our giveaway from Level 1 Game Shop. So Brews and Builds is our deck tech series, and it's all about the decks that Big Tuck, our guests, and I have in our Path to 32. Each podcast, we're going to talk about one of those Path to 32 decks, but hey, in a cool manner of brewing some beers. So we broke it down into 4 categories. The first one's going to be rampant setting your board state. That's the grain bill.
Yes, and grains are the foundation of every beer. They include both base malts and specialty malts, usually about a 60-40 ratio. This helps with the color, the taste, and most importantly, the alcohol content of the beer. Decks always need ways to grow, stabilize, and ramp into your bigger threats, and just like a grain profile, they're usually a mix of staples and specialty cards.
So the next one's going to be, how does your board interact with all of your opponents? We correlate that to hops.
Yes, and hops give the beer its patented bitterness and herbal and floral flavors. They grow in a variety of strands and help distinguish subcategories like IPAs. Our help choices help clear and interact with the board so your deck can do what it wants.
And then the next thing's going to be, how does your deck either A, win the game, or B, accomplish whatever weird shit you're trying to accomplish? We're correlating that to yeast.
Yes, and yeast are living microorganisms that eat the sugar from the grain and poop out alcohol and CO2. It adds the alcohol content and the carbonation. Without yeast, you'd be drinking flat sugar water, and without yeast cards in your deck, it won't meet the goal of actually winning the game.
And then to wrap up the brew, we have shenanigans. This could be pet cards, synergies, all through the broods that are just kind of in the deck that are fun. We're calling that spice pack.
Damn, you almost tried to slip that one past me.
Just kind of in the deck.
How dare you? So not every beer has them, but spices and other additives help separate a stock beer from a specialty one. It could be the pepper that turns a stout into a jalapeno stout, or the addition of cashmere and Amarillo hops that turn this, driving that hazy IPA from distilled brewing into a juicy IPA boy. Not every deck has something that makes it pop, but if it does, this is where we generally talk about it. And correct me if I'm wrong, I think this deck has a new record of 13?
Maybe?
It has 13, but that's got to be a record, right?
Correct. Yeah, but I mean, come on. It's not really 13.
What, like 7?
6.
Yeah, 6
or 7. And then to wrap up the episode, guys, we have a bottle capping. These are going to be Big Tuck's, Brando's, and I's recommendations to the deck that are under 5, under 50, and a no-budget personal recommendation. The only restriction is we can't talk about those mana-only lands. So without further ado, let's get brewing. Today, Brando, we had to do it. Special guests. Usually we always have our guests talk about one of their decks, but I thought it would be fun since today we're talking about Brudiclad's Army of Dwarves, which is CCO inspired. So I'd actually listened to your podcast way back, and when I could actually leave my house without fear of the COVID. And it was such an interesting deck. So why don't you give us a little bit of backstory about how you kind of came to that deck fruition, and then I'll kind of talk about how I made it even jankier.
Well, the 10,000 mile version of the story is it started off as a Surak Dragonclaw Werewolf tribal deck, and if you can imagine how awful that was, it was worse than you're thinking.
Especially if it was like several years ago. So
like it was hot burning garbage. So I was like, okay, F this. So I cut green. I turned it into what the hell was it next? Arjun the Shifting Flame, which is the right colors. Yeah. It was just draw your deck all the time. And I was like, this is fine, but I kept killing myself with stuff like thought reflection and stuff, and I just kept killing myself by accident, so that wasn't good. So cut that shit. put in Brudiclad, and then Eldraine comes along as I'm building this kind of janky token army strategy deck, and here comes the 7 dwarves, and I'm like, oh shit.
We got it.
Oh shit. Here it is. We got beefy boys, and we're going to beat down with these little 2/2 janky pieces of crap, and it's going to be awesome. And I just filled it up with all of like the Is It cards I always wanted to play, but they were just too bad or didn't fit into another deck. Because some of them make tokens. Like Locust God's a great card, but I don't have a deck for it.
Right.
So in he goes, because he makes locusts, and locusts make great 7 dwarves. So I just kept filling it up. There's a Krenkos, and there's all this stuff in this deck, and Brudiclad is who I settled on, because of course he makes tokens. He gives tokens haste.
Sure.
And then he turns the tokens into better tokens.
Yeah.
And off to the races I went, and it's a hell of a deck. I like your version, though, man. There's a whole bunch of stuff in here. I'm stealing immediately. I have it written down already. It's in my bag. I'm going to go home. So there's some stuff in here that's just good stuff, dude.
I got to tell you, I've got a half chub right now from all this token talk.
God, yeah, he is the king of tokens.
Welcome to Token Talk. I'm
But, I think it's interesting. If memory serves correct, I think when you guys talked about this deck for the first time, I think you won your very first game you ever played with it.
Sure did. Out of freaking nowhere, too. It's like, here's a 7 dwarf, and everybody laughs, because like, you're playing 7 dwarf. Play a good card you can play any number of, loser. And then they took 107 or however much it was, and it was amazing.
Nice.
Well, and I literally think that's what happened the first time I played this deck, is I think I won game 1 as well, because I even think I texted Tuck afterwards being like, dude, debuts the deck. Holy balls.
This got wheels. This guy's got wheels. Or perhaps mine carts, because the dwarves.
I like it.
Ooh.
So what I actually wanted to do, guys, so, of course you guys know I'm on a path to 32, and I was down to like the hard colors. It was like Orzhov, Is It, the 3 other 4 colors that just suck balls.
the four color that we got forced into talking about last week. So
yeah, like Brea. And so I'm always of the mindset I'm not just going to build a color to build a color, because A, that's a waste of money, and B, that's not fun creatively. Like to just be like, oh, I guess since there are no other options other than Brea, I guess I'm going to build Brea and make a degenerate deck. So when I heard of this deck, I was like, okay, that's cool, but Is It still has some of those very broken cards, Cyclonic Rift, all the counter spells,
Blasphemous Act, that sort of stuff.
Blasphemous Act. And so I decided to take it a step further, and that's kind of what I've done, and gained a little bit of respect from Big Tuck and our play group.
We'll get into this.
So I made this a 7 dwarf permanent deck. This is all permanents, no matter what. I made no exceptions, and so that's kind of how I jankified it. And it does play a little turn go or turn play go, so I don't really have a whole lot to do in other people's turns. But the thing I love about this deck is, and Brando I think will agree with me, you can kill someone out of effing nowhere. You'll have 25 1/1s and it'll be like cool, and then you'll make a 10/10 Eldrazi and be like, hey, I got 25 10/10s, suck my balls.
And these decks are good because it's kind of like driving a bulldozer, right? Where you can do it with a beer in your hand and you're still going to get your work done. Right? You don't need to worry too much about what other people are doing.
Absolutely. Well, Big Tuck, do you have any other thoughts on this deck?
I got plenty. But first, I have a question for the group. So this is one that's really gonna tickle your brainstem, or maybe your oblongata. So
sure.
Do you think that female dwarves have beards? And everyone can answer yes or no.
100%
yes.
they do, yeah.
Yes?
Yep.
Squee?
I'm in.
Yes, okay.
Beard.
Well, I don't know, but I have had to physically separate people at a Dungeons and Dragons meetup over this conversation. I'm dead serious.
I love one that you had to bounce a Dungeons and Dragons situation.
Yeah, right.
It's like people have just been getting hammered.
It was heated. So always stick to your guns on that one. But no, so as soon as you started talking about this deck, I was in. I love the idea of the dwarves. Again, Throne of Eldraine is just a garbage set set. We've said it time and time again. There's no
so to give Brando a little insight, me and Tuck, we usually do like a little bit of a preview, like all of us do, of the set. Throne came out, and this was within like the first month of us doing the podcast, when it was just a podcast at that time, and we were like, trash set, garbage. Yeah, Oko's good, but the rest of the cards suck dick, and we have just eaten our words over and over again.
But no, like I love the idea. So I love the idea of copying the dwarves. I love the idea that you stuck with the I like how you created a deck and stuck with the theme. So I got high props for that. Plus, no dual lands. Plus, no real infinite combos. I think there's one in there, but it's definitely a Rube Goldberg machine, and you can't tutor for it. Right, so I'm totally fine with that. It'll happen organically. Under $1,000, and that in reality, if you cut the insane foils that you have in here, this would be like well under 5 or maybe under 4.
Well, I think if you think about it, though, they have the Command Fest foil Soul Ring listed at $400.
Oh, really?
That's not going for that's not going for $400.
Okay, so it's so budget friendly, and it's also got the biggest spice package we've ever talked about. Like, this is a big Tuck deck through and through. So I really like this deck. I really like what you've done with it. I think it's really fun. I think this is a great representation of like breaking the color pie. We talked about this briefly, but former friend of the show, I don't know, Mikael, you know who you are. He had like a very tuned Brudiclad deck that was kind of like, I think that he built it the way that Brudiclad, quote unquote, is supposed to be. So I like that. I like that. And sometimes you see in a play group, which doesn't really happen that much anymore, where someone's like, I really like that deck, so I'm going to cut from it whole cloth and just like try to do it maybe like slightly better or whatever. So like the idea that you like kind of took this idea that we'd seen before and like totally made it your own, right? Like added in the limitations. I'm a huge fan of this deck. I was also surprised the CMC for all permanents is still like 3-4, which is pretty good.
I thought that was a little high, to be honest.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think you have some. So
there's some beefy cards.
Beefy cards.
Beefy CMC.
And I think a lot of times like things that help reduce the CMC in blue decks specifically are things like the Ponders, Brainstorms of the world, right? Like those cheap cantrip effects. You run a bunch of those and your CMC goes down by like 0.2. Yeah. So I think that you have enough ramp to get there. And once you get the ball going, like I think like once you hit that like 5-6 mana sweet spot, you're like off to the races, even if your commander gets killed. So this is one of the decks that I've really been looking forward to talking about, and I'm really excited I'm here.
Cool. And then I guess the last thing to point out is, from a mana distribution standpoint, I need a little bit more red, but the interesting thing is some of my cuts is actually going to reduce my red pips, so I think I'll be right back to right where it needs to be. But I think with a permanent dot deck to where you don't have a lot of mana tutors and things like that, I think you can actually... So, Brandon, one of the things that we've kind of had a thought of is if you're in a deck, let's just say Silencia, and it's like, I got way more green mana than I do green pips, and I could use more white, like Squee McGee's Reese deck. Mm-hmm. The thought process is like, well, I actually need that extra green so I can ramp, because that's kind of the ramp color. And so I can't even really swing the color pie, because then what if I get stuck with the other color that can't really ramp? I think when you do a deck restriction like all permanents, I don't think you actually have to worry about that, because you're not worried about, I need all of this particular color. Like normally you'd think I need a lot of blue because that's my counter magic, that's my card draw, that's a lot of the brainstorm type effects. But I think with this deck, if I do the changes that we all recommend and it's still not even, I think I might actually cut a bunch of islands and go more on the mountainside.
100%. Like you can run I'm going to say it, an unoptimized mana base in a deck like this, because you're not worrying about keeping up, like you say, blue or red for interaction. Yeah. You're just focusing on what you're doing, and you only need, let's just say, 2 or 3 red pips a turn. You're not playing like Dominus of Fealty and shit. Like you don't...
Right.
Yeah. You don't need that crap. Like, just run what... Yeah.
Yeah.
And you do have a third of the deck is artifacts, right? You have 30 artifacts in here, so it's also like your artifacts will make up for that in a lot of different ways, with the ramp and all that.
Worry about perfect mana in a deck like this, especially when it's only 2 colors, right? Like, you're going to hit your colors when you need them, and especially when you're on turn 4, 5, 6, you'll probably have one. Or you kept a bad opening hand and you deserve to be color host.
Or it's just to play into it to keep a bad opening hand and be like, hey guys, I'm just playing 7 Dwarf Tribal. 7 Dwarf turn 2, and then you don't play anything the rest of the game. They're like, oh, he's not an issue, and then you kill him.
Then you go for the throat.
All right, guys, now we're going to go into the Rampant Grain build, and I'm going to kick this off with being my deck, and I had to do it. There's no way I'm going to go an episode of my decks and not talk about a Planeswalker. Are we maybe? Are we aligned?
I mean, it's a 50-50 shot, right? So.
All right. Are we going to count down? Or are we going to do this like Thunderdome style? Or should I just go into it? You tell me.
Thunderdome, baby.
Can you give me one more vague clue?
He's holding something.
That gives it away, man. That was the biggest hint of it.
Not really, actually. That's a great clue. I think we're just going to have to count it down.
Count it down. Let's see what we get.
Let's go. 3, 2, 1.
Ugin
Tezzeret Artifice Master.
Total fail. I love it.
They're both holding. Did you intentionally do that? Oh, they're both holding something?
No. I literally just have my card highlighted, and I'm like, I'm just going to go off of this.
It's like, that doesn't help at all.
All right, guys. I'm talking about Tezzeret Artifice Master. So this is 3 colorless blue. It's a Planeswalker Tezzeret. Comes in with 5 loyalty. It is a mythic. And it has 3 abilities. Here's the cool thing. He does everything this deck honestly wants to do.
Yeah.
+1, create a 1/1 colorless Thopter artifact creature token with flying. Well, what does Brudiclad want? He wants more tokens to turn into better stuff. Here's the other thing. It's a 0 for its next ability, which is kind of putting it Jace the Mind Sculptor-y a little bit, just for, a 20th of the price?
Yeah, no kidding.
Draw a card. Draw a card. If you control 3 or more artifacts, draw 2 cards instead. Fantastic. Since I'm not playing any instants or sorceries that blue likes to do to draw cards, it's great. And then the -9, it's cool. Probably never going to happen. At least I've never seen it happen. You get an emblem with, at the beginning of your end step, search your library for a permanent card, put it onto the battlefield, and shuffle your library. Yes, that could be, in theory, game-breaking, because I could get something to turn into a token and just kind of win out. But really, this card's in here to draw cards, and then if I need to be creating Thop-Thops, create some Thop-Thops.
Right. And I completely agree with that. Like, I think this is a card that, in most decks, the +1 and 0 is going to be so critical in any way you cut it, right? This is only going to go into specifically artifact decks in blue. If you're not doing that, it doesn't really serve a lot of purpose. I do like the fact that because of your restriction, the -9 is literally tutor for any card, right? Which is kind of cool. But I agree. I don't think people will let that happen.
No.
But yeah, I think it's a great card, especially for the mana cost, right? 2 great abilities, a potentially game-winning ability on the ultimate. So I'm all on board with this guy.
I dig it too. I think that you guys might be underestimating just how easily you could possibly get to the -9 on this guy. Because, you're making 1/1s that fly, which are good blockers in and of themselves, but they could hypothetically be 8/8s, 9/9s, 7/7s. People aren't going to want to attack into that after a certain point, and if you're in some kind of a situation where you can't get over and just win the game, and you just keep making more 9/9 dudes, you could eventually get to that point where you can just... you're obviously in a position where you could probably just take somebody to Pound Town anyway, but it might make... There's always that one asshole guy that's got a moat or a...
Or glacial chasm, a couple weeks ago.
You gotta get him out of the way, right? So something like this could get you there over a long game that's kind of stalled out, because game's got to end, and Tezzeret could get you there.
Completely agree.
Yeah, I'm all for that, and that kind of feeds into Brando. Something that we talk about a lot on our channel is modality of cards, to where if you just have a card. Soul Ring's a good example. All it does is ramp or do your grain. But this is something that you make a great point. 2 of its 3 are grain effects that kind of help establish your board. But then that third one's a yeast. That could just straight out win the game. Go get one of the yeasty cards, or maybe even a spicy card. There's 7 of them. To just really bring it to Pound Town. So yeah, it's a good point.
On that sense, sorry, last thing on the modality, I think this deck is actually like a very opponent modality card deck, like we've talked about before, right? A lot of the things that you do are copying opponent stuff potentially too, right? And you can kind of forces them. This deck will force opponents to deal with you or like think about the things that they're playing and that sort of stuff too, right? So I think it's really interesting in that regard as well.
Yeah, that's fair. Well, Brando, why don't you take the next one? What's your first ramp or grain card?
My first one is actually a questioning as to why you play it.
Honestly. Wow.
Off the gates.
Yeah. Fire and Sky Diamond.
Yeah.
We just talked about like a minute ago how you don't need colored mana necessarily right away. You don't need all this fixing. So why are you playing slow? Super shitty fixing.
Yay!
So here's the thing: is I have the other two converted mana cost mana rocks in here that can produce the colors, and so we've talked about this on our past episodes. A turn 2 Sky Diamond doesn't feel that bad in a 2-color deck. Yeah, it's going to come in tapped, and that kind of sucks sometimes. But I think that cycle of mana rocks are severely underplayed. Now, is it Emerald Diamond or Sky Emerald, whatever the it is?
That's a green one.
Whatever it is for green, that should never be played because green just has it all. But the white one should always be played. The black one should probably be played. The red one should probably be played. The blue one, you could argue, is probably there's other things that blue can do to help ramp. But with me being in a permanent deck, I kind of felt pigeonholed to like, I kind of need these in here. Because I mean, heck, I got other bad ones like Mana Geode. I don't have good Mana rocks in
is awesome. I'm a huge fan of Mana Geode.
So that's kind of the thought.
Let me hit you with Ruby and Sapphire Medallion.
Ooh,
like. You know, I think that they're more expensive, obviously, but underplayed to the max.
In the defense of this, we did say that there's 30 artifacts in the decks, right? So Sky Diamond and Fire Diamond can both pay for artifacts. Ruby Medallion and Fire Medallion do not.
That's true. You got me on that one. If you can play one,
I'm like, I don't know.
Why not play 2 7 dwarves?
I don't know if I've if it's because I've been like studying or what, but like I'm like in the zone right now, so I'm not usually this eloquent.
Wait, are you in the zone? Auto zone?
Oh,
get out of here. But no, that's a good point. You know, it might be something to actually go through. Like if I'm looking at it, so I got a total of 48 pips in the entire deck. So it would be interesting that are colored. So it'd be interesting to figure out, okay, I got 48 total pips versus what's the total CMC of the entire deck put together, and figure out if the mana reducers would probably do more than just getting the 1 mana. So yeah, that's a good point. All right, Tuck, what do you got for us? You're so excited.
I'm excited about both.
You just can't hide it.
I'm excited about both of these, but since the other one's kind of been spoiled, we are talking about our boy Eugene. The Ineffable, or Budget Eugene, if you will.
There we go.
I recently bought like 6 of these, thinking the price would spike. It hasn't, so here we are.
And now he is a stock trader in Magic.
But again, this card does exactly what this deck wants, right? So for 6 colorless, it's actually just a rare legendary Planeswalker Ugin. Comes in with 4 loyalties. Ugin. So 3 relevant abilities in this deck, right? Number 1, colorless spells you cast cost 2 less to cast. Amazing, right? We talked already that a third of this deck almost is artifacts. So getting that reduction off of them is good, right? The second ability does double duty in this deck, which I think is really cool. So, +1, exile the top card of your library face down and look at it. Create a 2/2 colorless spirit creature token. When this token leaves the battlefield, you put the exiled card into your hand, right? So like we talked about, creates a token, draws you a card, right? On the same thing. Yep. And like, you know, there's some situations there, but you can always jump block with it. And if you have a bunch of Thopters, switching them over, that's a bad example. If you have a bunch of 1/1 somethings and you switch them over to 2/2s just because of this token, that's great, right?
Sure.
And then finally, -3 to destroy target permanent that's 1 or more colors. Again, we're playing all permanents, so we don't have a ton of targeted removal, and this is like probably the premier one. It's very rare that you're going to sit down and you're playing 3 like Eldrazi decks or whatever. So I think this card is like, I think this card's really good in most artifact decks, if not all of them, if they really lean into it. But in this deck, the fact that every single piece of it feeds into the strategy that you're going with just seems like a complete slam dunk. I will say that as soon as you play this card, people Duff will target you for no reason just because they've seen it work in standard.
Correct.
But that's a very good risk to run for the power of this card for sure.
I've honestly never played Ugin in a deck before.
What?
And that's real life. I've never played it.
Oh, you are missing out.
I don't own one. I never bought one. I like it. I know it.
You gotta show it, man. If you like it and you know it, you gotta show it.
Yeah,
it's a new slogan
the interesting
for Big Tech.
The interesting thing, though, with Ugin in this deck and with the way that Brudiclad's text reads is you have to make sure that if you've plussed him a few times and now you're ready to Brudiclad into something cooler, you're going to lose the cards underneath.
Oh,
yeah.
So you have to make sure that you don't want those cards because the way that Brudiclad's text reads is each other token you control becomes a copy of that token. It's not you choose what tokens become a copy of. So got to be careful on that because it can be tricksy.
That's true.
But for the most part, when I have the Ugin out there, I usually have some other nonsense, so I'm not worried about keeping those 2/2s behind his blockers. So now I just start swinging in with them. Like, give me the card. If you don't want the card, take the 2 damage. That works for me.
And it's close. It's kind of. I think this is close to like you talked about in the past how you like planeswalkers that you can like plus minus and kind of get that cadence, and you can probably get relatively close with him. And really save that minus for something that's a big juicy target. So I'm all on board. I'm all on board with Baby Eugene.
Cool. Well, my last grain is a card that came out in last year's Commander set. Is hella expensive. And it came out, I believe, in the deck that everyone hates.
Wait, hold on. Question. How do you define expensive?
$30.
Oh, okay. Like in the Christian meaning of the word, I see. Continue, please.
We've never talked about this card on the cast, but it does work in CEDH. It does work in EDH. We're talking about Dockside Extortionist.
Hell yeah!
This card is so good.
Yeah, it's
a colorless red Goblin Pirate because goblins needed more help. It's a 1/2. And like I said, guys, I was not incorrect. It is $30.90 TCG player average. Get this. Its MTGO cost on Card Hoarder is the exact same price to buy a paper copy.
What? Really?
It's played that much online that it costs. It's the same. Do you want something in real life or do you want this imaginary
something
fiction?
That's literally zeros and ones.
And so what Dockside Extortionist says is when it ETBs, create X treasure tokens where X is the number of artifacts and enchantments your opponents control. I don't know about your meta, Brando, but I know with our meta, artifacts and enchantments are starting to just kind of run rampant.
They are rampant.
And I have played him on, because there's the argument that we've had to where normally it's like you want to try to play stuff as quick as possible, and Dockside's like do you wait till turn 7 or 8 so you get a bunch more treasures, or you try to be more efficient and play it maybe turn 3 or 4 and get half. I've played him on turn 3 or 4 and gotten like 10 treasures before in a 4-pod. So much value.
And I think especially with this deck, because I think we talked about him on Greven where he serves like a much different purpose in here, right? I think even in this deck, shockingly enough, this could easily turn into like a yeast in this deck too, right? Because if you draw it turn 7 or 8 and Brudiclad's out, you're like, okay, I'll play him, make 15 tokens of treasure, use half of them to do whatever, and then Mr. Combo, you have the floor.
I literally did that and turned I turned 15 treasures into 15. It's a card in the East package. Let's just say it's in double-digit power and toughness.
Oh my gosh, nice. Yeah, so like I think that's really cool too, right? Like if you need the mana, you can run it out earlier. If you want to win, it's just like it's a great card, but again, it's like a great card that's even greater in this deck.
Yeah, I like cards that are goblins. I like cards that make my decks go fast, and I love cards that make children cry. And this one does all of that.
Check.
Oh yeah, it does everything that you want a Magic card to do. And I know it's expensive, and I super hope it gets a reprint later in the year so that people can actually play with them.
No kidding.
I think that would, if people could get them, I think that people would hate them less. And playing with this in a post-Theros world where everybody was building the Enchantress
That's
deck,
a good point.
how good does that feel, right? It's like, look at my super enchanted Voltron. It's like, oh, thanks.
I don't know.
Here's
how
my
it feels.
20 treasures.
I don't know how it feels because I don't have a copy of it. So.
Well,
Did you not buy that Commander
No,
deck?
I think I only bought one from there because it was.
Oh, that's right. That's the year that you made the mistake and didn't buy all of
Yeah,
them.
it was a fool's errand for sure. But here we are.
Here we are.
You'll get it back.
Well,
Yeah.
well, you know what? I think that's actually a card that's either primed to be printed in the Commander Legends, or honestly, it could maybe, if they wanted to put it into Modern and Legacy and Legacy and Vintage is already there, but if they wanted to get it into Modern, because I don't think it'd be that broken in Modern, they could always do it in the Double Masters.
I heard there's a
That
new set
wouldn't be
coming
a
out
bad-
called Triples Masters in about a month.
Is Double Masters gonna be?
I know.
Is Double Masters gonna be modern legal?
I don't know.
I think so. No.
I thought... No?
Because the reason why I think
know.
the only one they did with that was Modern Horizons, specifically saying that these cards are going to be legal in Modern. I don't know though. That would be crazy. That would be nuts.
But anyways, they could
Mana
be...
Crypt into Modern. You don't want to do that.
Yeah, that's good.
Mana Vault into Modern. Yeah.
That's fair. So if Double Masters is just for Legacy and Vintage, this is already legal in those sets. So very easily you could see a reprint in
Absolutely. God willing, man.
Yeah, and we get the price line right away, which is nice.
Oh yeah, 100%. I mean, granted, we say price in line, it'll probably go from 30 to 15. Still,
Well, hey, that's
No,
That's
nowadays
some
it'll go
savings.
from 30 to 55, I believe.
well, Brando, what's
finance.
yeah? What's your last ramp and grain card?
It's a card that I have been waiting for somebody to play that I haven't had. It's not that I don't have the guts to do it, but I don't know, man. I don't know. How
I think I know what you're talking about.
I think I know what you're talking about. I think we might be getting a little. I think we might be meeting up on this one.
It might be
Is
a
it covered
triple
in
countdown.
It sure is. Woo! Yeah!
I got there. Like it's so scary to play that card, you know? 'Cause I'm gonna get some value. I'm gonna get some ramp. I'm gonna get some cards. This is super sweet. And then I'm gonna get my face kicked in, and then somebody else is gonna get all that sweet value.
I'm so proud of you, Mr. Combo, for keeping this in. It's a real testament to your belief in this deck.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie. When I was going through the deck today, I actually saw that, and then I doubt you guys are doing this for a bottle capping, but like Blink Monthern. I was like, that might be better than this because it's going to make me way more
fun,
mana.
Way
but
more fun. So why don't
it's scary.
I'll read the converted mana cost and the first two abilities
ETB.
because I don't have my glasses as usual. So Coveted Jewel is a 6-drop artifact. It's a rare sitting at 79 cents. So when it enters the battlefield, draw 3 cards, tap and add 3 mana of any one color. But there's more.
Oh, Coveted Jewel also has whenever one or more creatures an opponent controls attack you and aren't blocked, they get control of it. And then they draw 3 cards and they get 3 mana. Oh, it's so good.
I love it.
So the interesting thing, Brando, with our play group is we got a bunch of pillow 40s. Just no one wants to swing in anymore. So honestly, I feel like having this card in our play group, just no one's ever going to swing. No one's ever going to want it. Because heck, we even do like the Curse of Opulence on people, and they still are like, oh, I don't know if I want to swing. And it's like, God, what's wrong with you? It's free mana.
Gosh.
Just swing something.
Man, well, and I think we always talk about doing that chip in damage. Like, there's been games. Have you ever had the end of the game where you've been playing for 2.5 hours and you're so sick and you're so tired and you want to swing in and you want to win the game, but you can only get them 2, and the reason you can only get them 2 is because no one can get them for the whole goddamn game.
There is a bunch of panty wastes in our group, which I will admit. But so I think the reason why I like this deck so much in here is because you generally will have like an army of stuff, right? An army of blockers, whether they're Thopters or Dwarves or whatever. So even if they do come in, you're like, okay, perfect, target acquired, right? Like, you want to come in? I'll let you. You want to come in with 4 zombies? Sure, but I'm coming in with a house. Next turn. I'm bringing.
Well, yeah, and the big reason it's in the deck is because it draws 3 cards. I don't have a whole lot of ways to do that, and it is 3 mana. It's not the best rate, like a Gilded Lotus is 1 mana better, but I think we'd all agree. Okay, Gilded Lotus is a decent card, but pay 1 more mana to draw 3.
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah, totally on board.
I'll sign up for that.
Totally on board with
And
it.
it's fun too. Like, you're not playing a card that's super janky or dirtbag or degenerate. Like, it makes the game fun. You know what I mean? Like, if somebody's sitting over there with the 2 mana and they can't even play Magic, but they have a 1/1, you let them in so that they can get into the game. Maybe. I might think about it.
I was like,
I'd offer it and then maybe stomp them into the ground. But I mean,
serves you right for having hope.
So, question for the group. What if they did a cycle of these cards where it had different ETB effects and then the effect would shift around? I just thought of one. When Monarch Jewel enters the battlefield, you become the Monarch. And if someone swings in and it's not blocked, they become the Monarch and get the Jewel. And they can have different effects like that.
Okay, so check this. I love the idea, but what if it's that whenever the creature controls deals damage, whenever a player becomes the Monarch, so when it enters the battlefield, you become the Monarch. Whenever someone becomes a Monarch, they gain control of it.
Ooh,
yes, that is genius, Mr.
That's
Combo.
cool.
I'm on board. I'm 100% on board.
All right, Wizards, I know you're not listening. Take notes.
They definitely are. They're 100% listening to every word that we say, and they're making notes. They're stealing everything.
It's all in the algorithm.
Whenever you have tapped out open, they just immediately hack into your microphone.
Send it out to the approved creators that they can send it out to the.
Well, guys, that's gonna wrap up the. That's going to wrap up the Rampant Grain bill. Now we're going to head over to that board state and hop profile. And Brando, why don't you start us off? What's your very first hop card you want to kind of point out?
This card made me rock hard when I saw it because I own.
I like it,
and I've never played it, and I do not know why. Because seeing it in this deck, it just blew my whole mind hole. And it is Soul Foundry. And Soul Foundry is
that's mine too. That's my first pick. We're dialed in.
Dude, you guys are just a sync.
We're
dialed in
on the level, but it is an artifact.
I got all the facial hair and back hair. You got all the normal hair on the top of your head. We're the perfect amount.
It's an artifact for 4 with imprint. When it comes into play, you exile a creature card from your hand. I assume it's going to be a 7 dwarf or something of that nature. Then you
God willing,
X and tap it. You get a token that is the creature, and X is the creature's mana cost. That card is so awesome.
Can you imagine hitting Dockside Extortionist with this card? Can you imagine?
I didn't think I could get any harder than I was when I was reading that card, and I just did. I'm gonna need.
We're talking diamond.
It's been more than 3 hours. I have to go to the ER. That's where I'm at right now.
So that's actually why it's in the hop section, is because it probably is a better fit for a Yeast, because, if I do it with a 7 dwarf, then it's only 2 mana, then I got a token, then Brudiclad can make all the tokens a 7 dwarf. But really it's in the hops because it's like, it can kind of be modular for whatever the situation is. Like Tuck pointed out, if I'm kind of hurting for mana, maybe I kept a 3-lander. We've all kept a 3-lander, and then you never draw another effing land the rest of the game. And so, if a mana rock can get me to at least 4, maybe I do exile Dockside Extortionist and then just start creating those every turn. Creating all the treasures. So, that's always good. There's just a lot of, Dragon Master Outcast, personally to me, that's a very underrated card in EDH. You're going to have 6 or more lands at some point in the game. How does it feel to have 7 of those dudes out, and then you're on that extra land drop, and it's like, I got a shit ton of dragons. I love that card. It does so much.
Totally. Yep, that's it. That's all I got for that.
Well, that was yours. Mine is actually a card, once again, because I don't have a lot of instant or removals that aren't permanents. This is a way to at least get rid of enchantments. It's something Brando... Oh, really?
Hell yeah, that's great.
Ready?
Yeah.
3, 2, 1.
Enchanter's
Band. Yeah. Get it.
Card rules.
Yeah, dude, it's amazing. So, Tuck, I know you don't have your glasses on. Okay. So, I'll read the main text and then you read the quote.
Oh, perfect.
It's a colorless red enchantment. At the beginning of your end step, target enchantment deals damage equal to its converted mana cost to its controller unless that player sacrifices it.
And those who fail to respect power will soon be consumed by it.
Ooh, deep.
And Tuck, you need to take 2 drinks. 1, you don't have your glasses on. 2, you're wearing a shirt that says Optiver.
Oh, there we are.
Oh, there you go. And so, Brando, this is something we talk about a lot on our channel, that enchantments are some of the hardest permanents to get rid of. Like, I almost feel like there's more planeswalker removal now than there is enchantment removal. And so having something like this makes it very easy to start not necessarily picking off enchantments, but I played it at our LGS during one of our takeovers, and one guy took like 15 damage over 5 turns. And then at that point, he was so low, and he's like, but I'm so close to having this enchantment do something. Then it was just like, I guess I'll take another 3. And it's like, yeah, you will. And so, and that's the thing that I've noticed, because it's not a massive amount of damage. Hey, sack your enchantment unless you take 10 or 15. It's usually 2 to 5, somewhere in there, and people in EDH, because we got 40 life, they'll be like, sure, I'll take it, don't even worry about it. And then it's like, are you gonna do it again? I guess so.
Do it again.
You want to do it again? And if I could pay 2 mana and have it deal 10 damage, I'm all for that.
For sure. Or you get rid of a problem permanent, which, I mean, again, like, you're playing red and blue. Those colors do, as you say, have a hard time getting rid of enchantments. Because, I mean, green and white, you're laughing. You laugh at enchantments. You mock them.
Sure.
Here, like, yeah, you need something like Enchanter's Bane. I play this in a couple of decks, too. And again, it punishes those enchantment players who like to hide behind their ghostly prisons and their stuff. It's like, yeah, you can hang out, but you're going to take damage anyway. And eventually, you're either going to die or you're going to sack it, and then you're going to die. And I love it. I like Enchanter's Bane.
And I agree with, like, and this deck also lives and dies in the red zone, right? So, like, chipping away the 3-5 mana every turn, and the fact that you can choose who it is, right? So you might, like, it might get to the point where you got someone down to 10, and then you're like, okay, you sure you want that, true conviction or whatever to get you to 5? That's up to you. You know what I mean? So I'm on board with it for sure.
Well, and then the one thing that you always have to kind of be careful of is if there are no enchantments out, you'll take 2.
You do have to take 2. So, but I mean, come on.
So 2's not the end of the world. So, all right. Well, Brando, why don't you kind of take us home with your last hop?
My last hop is a card that, again, I love this card, and I love that it's in this deck, and I like it anytime I see it anywhere, and it's Vizier of Many Faces. I love this card. I think that people overlook it all the time because we have the stunt doubles and the Dax duplicates and all these other really great clones.
Sure.
And they overlook Vizier of Many Faces, which is a 0/0 for blue 2. Comes into play as a copy of any creature on the battlefield. Ignores Shroud and Hexproof. I feel lots of people get into fights at that at casual tables. That's important. And it also has Embalm blue 3, and I get them confused all the time. Embalm is there where it's a 4/4?
No, that's the other one.
That's the other one. So this is the one where it comes back and it just you can get a token.
Yeah, you get to cast it. You get to cast it for 5 instead of 4 from the graveyard.
Yeah, and you get another clone of something that's a token. So you can get, and it can be your opponent's shit. So you could get your opponent's giant thing, their World Breaker or whatever their huge dude is, and then turn your army.
Or you copy one of your 7 dwarves.
There you go.
So it gets you coming, it gets you going. It gets you from the front and the back. Don't Google that. It's a fabulous card.
Yeah, I'm a huge fan of it. There was a game that I was able to do some work with the Embalm mechanic, but what had happened is I kind of got land screwed. So at one point I had to discard down to hand size, and it's like, oh, Vizier of Many Faces, get out of here. Don't need you. Because you know what, really... It coming in as a actual non-token creature, it's a good effect, but it's not why it's in the deck. Like if they could even said, hey, pay 2 mana and pitch it to the graveyard like a cycling effect, it would be, oh man, cycle it every time. I'd probably never cast it. But it's kind of one of those weird games where sometimes I have this card. It's like, Brando, if you have that opening hand with the reanimate and like a badass creature, and it's like, do I just not play a land first turn just to discard the big guy? And just reanimate.
Trick him into thinking I'm playing Dreads right now. Is that what I do?
Yeah, no, that's a great card. And I actually had to buy the freaking token for it because I kept forgetting. Like, I would just like pull it out and then I'd forget that it's a token. And it's like, no, I can make copies of it. So, well, Tuck, I guess you have nothing else to talk about.
That was it.
So... I guess my last one is a card that I've always wanted to work in decks. It's a little slow, but I think in this deck it's fine. Tamiyo's Journal. So this is a 5 colorless legendary artifact, and it says at the beginning of your upkeep, investigate. So basically I put out a colorless clue artifact token that says pay 2, sacrifice it, and draw a card. And then it also has another effect where I could tap the Tamiyo's Journal, sack 3 clues, search my library for a card, and put that card into hand, and shuffle your library. In other decks, unless you're doing like clue.deck, it's way too slow. It just can't produce them enough. Or I guess if you're doing like a weird token build, like, and you got your doubling seasons and all that kind of stuff, parallel lives, yeah, then I'm you know, whatever. But in this deck, I think it's fine because I'm making tokens to maybe turn into other stuff. If I'm desperate, beginning of combat, I can turn them all into clues and then tap to sacrifice the clues to go tutor for whatever I need. So it gives me a little bit of modality. It's a card that if there was something else that's a permanent that could do something similar to this, I would definitely consider swapping it. But, you know, I think it's fun, and it definitely takes the power level down. Like, you know, we talked about in his Brea episode, Brando, of certain choices, like he put in Oblation instead of Chaos Warp. Wasn't on purpose, but we went with it. Oblation is just a significantly worse Chaos Warp. So, you know, sometimes you make choices just to power down a deck, or like having Dispatch instead of Path to Exile. And I think Tamiyo's Journal is one of those where it's like there's probably something better out there, but it does what the deck wants. It's just a little slow.
This is one of those cards that could actually kind of, in a really niche situation, surprise you and kind of like, because again, you're playing all creatures, all permanents, you get Wrath, you're going to have a hard time rebuilding. This is a card that could hypothetically help you rebuild after a Wrath, because you make 1 clue and 2 other tokens.
That's fair.
Make tokens, you could find the thing you need to help you get going again. And that's not, you know, it's,
that's fair.
It's not going to happen often, but the one time it does happen, you're going to feel super smart.
Yeah, and
and that doesn't happen often for me.
So when Tamiyo's Journal got spoiled, I was so excited. I bought like 6 copies of it.
Me too.
Like, this is gonna go in every deck, and just slowly but surely, deck by deck, it's slowly gotten picked out. But I do think it's got wheels in here. Again, the token can be a mirror or a dragon or just a draw card when you need it. So I kind of like that modality of it too. So it's hard, but I like that it's in it.
Cool. Well, guys, that's going to wrap up the hot profile. And then we're going to head over to how this deck wins games in Yeast. Tuck, start us off. What's the first card you want to talk about?
I want to talk about a card that I really like, and this is a card that I probably have left in decks longer than it should, but in this deck it really shines. Mostly because it's got wings and they're gold. So we are talking about Thopter Assembly.
Hey, me too. There we go.
We're on fire today, boys.
I'm just going to be sitting.
Can you have an original thought?
No, I can't.
Come on.
I cannot at all. Thopter Assembly is a 6-drop artifact creature. Thopter, it's a 5/5 with flying, and it has a pretty crazy ability. So, Mr. Combo, you want to help me out here?
Yeah, so it says at the beginning of your upkeep, if you control no Thopters other than the assembly, return it to your hand and put 5/1/1 Thopter artifact creature tokens with flying onto the battlefield. So basically it says you get him at the upkeep, you get the 5, Brudiclad happens, you're going to turn them all into something else, and then he's going to bounce back and you're going to get another 5, and it just keeps happening.
Exactly. So I like this card a lot, especially if there's in this deck it works because you can turn them into literally anything else, like treasure tokens if you have to, right?
Sure. But
I like this in other decks that have like a lot of sacrifice outlets for artifacts, right? So it's just kind of like a recurring engine. And then it like this would be like the weirdest way you could possibly do it. It is on its own a 5/5 flyer. So if you can get if you can somehow manage through some ridiculous like gameplay, be able to create a copy of it and then Brudiclad it out, it kind of like backs up as like another dragon, sort of, right? And granted, that is like way out in the stretch. That is a stretch goal for sure. But just a really cool card. And like I said, I think it's a really great card, but the fact that it does double and triple duty in this deck really makes it shine here.
Now, because this is EDH, I can ask this question. If you had a bunch of these, the only Thopter you control is Thopter Assembly, so would you then return all of the token copies to your hand and make a bunch more Thopters?
At your upkeep, yeah.
Is that how that would work?
Yeah. Wait, no.
Like you would make... No, is that not how that would work? No. Or is that how that would work? Because it says other...
Yeah, so I think you would have to probably go to the rules lawyers because I believe the way that it would check is each Thopter assembly would say other than Thopter assembly, like recognizing maybe itself from a Scryfall perspective. Ooh, Tucker, are you looking it up?
I'm on it.
He's in the
It's
tank.
weird wording, but like, I don't know, off the top of my head, this could either be a nothing burger or be super hilarious.
The triggered ability looks for any permanent you control with the creature type Thopter. And this one says not just the Thopter tokens previously created by a Thopter assembly, but I think with the triggered ability looking for any permanent you control with the creature type Thopter would check that and not do it.
Weak. Thopter assembly sucks now.
No. Actually, that makes it better because if you have 1 million copies of it, if you have 1,000,000 copies of it, you don't want it to bounce it back to your hand, right? Because like I'd rather have 10 copies of Thopter assembly than 20 1/1 Thopters.
Well, that wouldn't be accurate. It'd be 50 1/1 Thopters.
Ooh, that's true.
And then you're
that's pretty rad.
right? Like, this could be. It could have been cool.
It's still good either way.
It's not.
I see this as an absolute win.
Oh, good. There we go. Hulk it, baby. Well, Brando, what is your first game winner you want to talk about?
Well, if we had 50 Thopters, I think that mine would go very well, and it's Shared Animosity.
Ooh, yeah.
I love Shared Animosity. It's an enchantment for red 2. Whenever a creature you control attacks, it gets +1/+0 for each other attacking creature that shares a creature type with it. So it turns all of your dudes into little tiny goblin pile drivers. Mm-hmm. And given that all of your creatures in this deck, under most circumstances, are going to be the same creature, you can do work with this card.
100%. It's basically a powered down version of another card that I won't name in case someone else is talking about it. But it's only your creatures that you control opposed to everyone's creatures.
I think for me, that's a critical reason why I like this card so much is because there is tons of tribal strategies in EDH, right? So the fact that it's only on your side, especially at a lower curve, I think is really worth it. The card that cannot be named, or the card that may be named at some other point in the next 4 to 6 minutes, is really good and really strong. However, it does come with like an inherent risk to it. But a Shared Animosity is pretty much just like straight for you. You're gonna have 1 million of something, and you're gonna swing in for them for the butts.
Yeah, the only thing I wish it did +1/+1 until end of turn, because it is still until end of turn, unlike the other card that's just a static buff. I don't think that's asking too much to give a little bit of Beyonce to my chesticles.
Like that.
I didn't know where to go with
that a lot.
All right. Well, Tuck, what's your last game winner?
All right, so this one was a weird one, but I like it. And I think, again, this is another card that really plays dual parts to it, right? So, I want to talk about our boy. Some may idolize him.
I literally won with that card last weekend.
So you cast him into Oblivion. We're talking about Idol of Oblivion. So card's great. 2 colorless for an artifact. It's just under $2. So first ability, tap, draw a card. Activate this ability only if you created a creature token this turn. You're gonna do that. Half the deck does that. The commander does that, right? No big deal. So again, we've talked about how in this deck, since you've had the restrictions that you put on yourself, having this sort of thing is like a premium, right? Like effectively 2 mana for a card every turn. Same value.
Sure.
But if it gets to the point where you need it, 8 tap, sack it, create a 10/10 Eldrazi creature token. So another card that might be named by somebody in the next 4 to 6 minutes without having to cast it, and for 2 mana less. So that's why I like this card so much. Again, it's like the modality of it, right? I'm guessing most times this is going to just keep drawing you cards, keep drawing you answers, and then when you're like when you're ready to win, you have your army set up, right? Even if it's like smaller. So as opposed to winning with like 40 creatures, you can easily win with 20 on this, right? At whenever you want. So that's why I like this a lot. It just does exactly, again, like this is a good card in decks that need card draw and also tokens. However, in this deck, both abilities are just straight streamlined, straight exactly what we're looking to do.
That's literally how I won that game. Is I played it early and I just kept drawing cards and I kept like counting my mana. Like, okay, where am I at? 6? Okay, play it cool. And I just kept making tokens. Then it was like land drop, and I was like kind of looking around. Everyone's tapped out. I'm like, okay, guys, tap 8, sack this, make a 10/10 token. And I think at the time I had 15, 18 tokens, something like that. So now I had 19 10/10s, and it's like I swing in and kill everyone. They're like, what the F?
And one thing we forgot too that I think is really critical is the fact that your creature tokens have haste right from Brudiclad.
We didn't talk about that.
But just the fact that you can do this at a moment's notice on your turn and still be able to go in, it's just awesome. So again, a card that's good in the right deck, but is really, really good in this one.
I like cards like this where people forget about them. We around my table we call it hiding it behind the chip bowl. We just have the card and it's just such a, not like drawing a card is innocuous, but at a certain point it's like, ooh, I got a token into play. I'm going to draw a card. I did some work. I'm benefiting.
Right.
Sure, whatever. And people forget about it, and all of a sudden, like you say, it's all my dudes are 10/10s now. And it's like, whoa. Why did we leave it alone for so long? They could have destroyed it hours ago, but they didn't, and now they're dead. And I love that. I love cards like that.
It's the best feeling. Well, my last yeast card is a card that as soon as it hits the table, everyone wets themselves. It's one that is literally the spirit of EDH. High risk, high reward. We're talking about Phyrexian Processor.
Oh, yeah. Yes.
Oh, yeah,
yes,
baby.
Yes, sir.
So, 4 colorless artifact. As it ETBs, pay any amount
20.
of life. I'm traditionally paying 35 to 39
Wow.
if I can.
Why not? Why not?
What a maniac.
Yeah. 4 colorless tap, put an XX black minion creature token onto the battlefield where X was the life paid into Phyrexian Processor as it entered the battlefield. So and the key thing with this is that the minion has the text that connects it to the processor, unlike some other cards where, like, if you try to copy a germ, the germ's just a 0/0 and it's just going to die. So this kind of gets around that cool little restriction that other cards have. And yeah, you know what? We just talked about how cool it'd be to have like 10 or 15 10/10s. Well, how cool it'd be to have 10 or 15 like 35 35s.
Go on.
Yeah, I can't see how that would be any good. I feel like that would just be fine. What are you guys talking about? That's like totally medium. That's the most medium thing. I love this card just for I remember playing it back in Standard way back in the day because I'm old as shit.
This on Standard play?
Dude. It was like it won a world tour, man. Like the Finkel deck won off of this.
It's because there's also a gold bordered version of it.
Boo.
There is a gold version of it, but it's a sweet card. And again, you always put yourself into burn range. Just win the game.
Yeah.
You play it and you immediately win the game. No bullshit. And I love that. Or you lose the game. You immediately win, or you immediately lose. Good.
I do like that this deck has a lot of cards that are like that, where it's like, hey, we're speeding this game up, right? Like we even talked about like Coveted Jewel, the card that is yet not named and still might be, like Shared Animosity. Like a lot of these cards that you put in are like board warping, and a lot of them are like, I'm either going to win now or you have to stop me. So I like that this deck, I feel, once it gets to a point, really can go in and close out some games.
If the card not
100%.
named is not Voldemort, I'm going to be upset.
Hey, look, this isn't. I'm not going to go.
Brando's like,
I'm not going to go through the pile of cards that I sorted from friend of the show Tice that are from the Harry Potter collectible card game. All right, I'm not doing it.
A drink. Thank you.
I think those are actually worth some money.
What?
Well, Brando, why don't you wrap this up? What's your last yeast?
It's not the card that shall not be named, which we will talk about in the show later if I have anything to say about it.
Oh, no.
Yeah. Mine is Helm of the Host.
Oh, yes.
Oh, yeah.
And I super dig Helm of the Host in decks like this, mostly because I play it in my deck, and mine runs a few more legendary creatures in it, so I might get a little bit more mileage than this one, and that's not me bragging, but like this is just an...
No, it's cool. You can flex. It's all right.
It's an equipment for 4. It equips for, I think, 3 or 5.
5, I believe.
5.
At the beginning of combat on your turn, you create a copy of the equipped creature, and if the equipped creature is legendary, the token is not. So you can copy Brudiclad and then turn all of your dudes into Brudiclad in preparation for the next turn where you make an army's worth of
Right.
Brudiclad tokens, which you then turn into more Brudiclads or Krankos or whatever you need to do. And
So I hinted at this up front. I think if you equip this to Krenko, that goes ultimate with him, right? For ETB triggers, because you equip it to Krenko, it makes a copy that's non-legendary. You can tap that non-legendary one, copy himself, make another one, make another one, make another one, right? So that
it wouldn't be infinite, but it might as well be after.
Right, and if you have
Wait, no. You mean Kiki Jiki, not Krenko.
Sorry, I meant Kiki Jiki. That's exactly what I meant. Thank you very much. So
and Kiki Jiki would
and then you got your we didn't talk about like Impact Tremors and Perforos God of the Forge, but honestly, like that's a 2-card combo that we have that you have no way of tutoring for and costs somewhere.
I honestly didn't even know that was a 2-card combo.
And also like so I usually
Kiki Jiki a combo.
Right, I know. So I was like, as soon as I saw Kiki Jiki, I was like, he better not have that other card in here. I'm gonna be so upset. But like the fact that Kiki Jiki costs 5 and to do this costs like what 9, so it's a 14 mana investment in a deck that can't ramp. So I'm like, okay, if you pull that off like 100%, it's like you got me like 100%. Okay,
the table deserves it.
Yeah, exactly.
Point, right, the table you saw it coming, you had your chance.
Yeah, exactly. Now you gotta pay for
it. Die. I like it. Yeah, it's interesting. Helm of the Host honestly was just in here because I feel like you can't have a Helm of the Host or a Brudiclad deck without Helm of the Host. It just seems like they go together like peanut butter and bananas. And I also have it in here because hopefully, as you guys have gone through the deck, I try to put a lot of redundancy and ways of creating token copies of my own creatures, whether it's from the graveyard, on the battlefield. And this is just one more of those ways to where if we get to the namesake card, which I did not choose, I left it open if either of you guys wanted to talk about it.
Oh.
It's at least a way to kind of do that rigmarole and kind of make that happen. But I didn't even honestly think about just making a shit ton of Brudiclads, then having all those effing Brudiclads make more Brudiclads. And oh God, where does it end? I probably would never even swing. I would never even swing. Oh no, I just keep making them. Just see how many Brudiclads I can make. See how many of dry erase tokens I run out of. But no, it's a great
The last
card.
thing I'll say on that, $9. I regret not buying them when they were 5 because I'm guessing this is only going to go up, which is a shame. But here we are.
Yeah.
It might see more. This is another card I could see getting a reprint soonish in more Commander stuff because it's not like it's game breaking, right? Like it's
I got you one better. What if this got reprinted? Because I think Double Masters is going to be a lot of like tokens and that sort of thing. Might be a juicy reprint at rare for Double Masters.
Yeah,
maybe.
Yeah.
Ooh, it'd be even juicier at uncommon.
Oh, that would be awesome.
Grab those tinfoil hats, boys.
Oy, oy, oy.
All right, well, that's going to wrap up the East package. Now we're going to head over to the Spicy Meat to Balls. I'll start it off. So you guys know I won't be talking about it, but I'm talking about a card that I kind of have the hots for when it comes to this deck, but I don't know if it actually works. We're talking about Tialana Summoner.
Yeah, this is a good one.
Yeah.
So colorless red, human shaman, and she does have a sin. So if you have 10 or more permanents, you get the City's Blessing for the rest of the game, and she's a 1/1. Here's why I'm not sure if it really works that great. So when it attacks, you may pay X in red. If you do, create X 1/1 red elemental creature tokens that are tapped and attacking. At the beginning of your next end step, exile those tokens unless you have the City's Blessing. Here's the kind of weird non-bow with it. Yes, I could dump like 12 mana into it and make 11 of these 1/1s, but I can't turn them into anything until my next turn. Because Brudiclad's at the beginning of combat, and this is at when she attacks. So I have to stick around with these 1/1s for a rotation that don't really do anything, and they are tapped. Like, I run this in my Niheb deck because I basically look at it as I'm only losing 1 mana, but I'm gaining all that mana back because I'm lowering everyone's life totals down, and that's more important. This deck, yeah, you want to be living on the roads and lowering life totals, but you really kind of live for the really cool BS. I'm turning all my stuff into these really cool things. But I think it's kind of similar to Tamio's Journal. It's a little slow, but I think it can work in the deck.
And I like the idea, like, because the CMC on it's so low, I do like the kind of idea where you can play this and then, like, people may forget that what your commander does because it is a lot of text. So it could be the thing where you're making 6 tokens off it and 3 of them live, and then next turn you can play your commander and then you're off to the races from there, right? Like that's kind of like worst. That's middle case scenario. So I like it for that reason, right? Like it's kind of an innocuous card. It's not making 10/10s, right? And you have to pay mana for it. So that's what I really like about it, right? Like I think this card, like if you can set up to where when you untap and get ready to cast Brudiclad, and you have like an extra 3 or 4 tokens that are nice juicy targets for him, then I think it's well worth its weight in gold or treasure.
I think it's a great army in a can type card. Again, for after that, the inevitable wrath, the inevitable removal. This is another one where you put it down. Yeah, it's slow, but if you've been wrathed and everything sucks, you can put down a summoner, and I can't say that damn word, and just you just attack for whatever, make a bunch of dudes because you don't have a whole lot going on, and you're back in business right away. And I dig that. Also, if you play it early, you can swing in at the guy with no blocks, make like 1 guy, make 2 guys, make 3 guys. You don't have to invest your whole mana pool in it.
Chip.
Make a few and get those damages in.
And the more you kind of talk about it, Brando, it kind of goes back to a point you made earlier in the game to where the way this deck is built is having open mana at the end of my turn does nothing for me. So, and there have been times, granted, it's never happened with her out, but there have been plenty of times where I've played this deck and it's like, cool, I got a full grip. Let me just play what I can. Or I don't even have full grip. I have like 2 cards. Let me play them. All right, I got no cards in hand. Yeah. I got like 7 mana left. Brudiclad's already out. I guess I'll just swing and pass. At least this way I could dump that mana into her and maybe make something worthwhile. So, okay. Yeah, not terrible. Not terrible.
I think it's a cool card. I think it'd be a spicy meatball, and it could steal you a game.
Sure.
Yeah, possibly. All right, Brando. What card are you going to talk about?
My card is Feldon of the Third Path.
Yeah. Ooh, okay.
I super like this card. Every time he shows up anywhere, he makes me happy.
Yeah.
He is a 2/3 for red 1, and he has an ability that is red 2 tap, create a token that is a copy of target creature in your graveyard. It has haste. It's an artifact in addition to all the other stuff. Sack it at the end of turn.
Yeah.
So it brings your 7 Dwarf back if it dies. It brings your... I guess we're already past it, so it brings your Desolation Twin back and leaves a token in its wake. It brings back a Wormcoil Engine, which you didn't talk about, but like it leaves the 2 tokens from that too. It does all sorts of amazing things, and it's from the graveyard. So again, when you're trying to get that rebuild on, this guy's going to get you.
Now, here's another rules lawyer question, right? So let's say you pull back a Wormcoil Engine or a Desolation Twin or something like that, and then you copy that token. You have to sack all those tokens that are copies of it, right?
No,
just that one right there, right? Okay,
yeah,
just the one.
Yeah, well, and here's kind of the cool thing about Feldon. I feel like a lot of times whenever it's the created token from the graveyard, it's usually you got to exile it from the graveyard. Hey, exile a creature from the graveyard, you get a token till end of turn. Like Black does a lot of that kind of bullshit. And I really like how Feldon is just like, no, you just get to keep creating token copies of it. And the interesting thing is that if it's like, man, I just need, say you already got your 10/10 on the board, but you need one more. All you have to do is make a copy of whatever the hell you want to out of the graveyard, and then you can turn that token into whatever else is on your board, and then you don't even have to sacrifice it, because now it's a completely different token.
And sorry, go ahead.
Oh, no, I was going to say, he does a lot of work. I run him in my Geared deck, and he kind of does a lot of work in there. I think any kind of deck that wants to deal with bigger tokens, the more go tall strategy, and if you can run red, Feldon of the Third Path Santa Claus should be in the deck.
Earl Pal at the North Pole. The best thing that has ever happened with me is I do run him into ready, and I pretty much, it got down to like me and one other person, and I had Wormcoil Engine in my graveyard, so I'm like, okay, make a copy of Wormcoil Engine, swing in for 6, gain 6. I have two creatures out. Next turn, same thing, over and over and over again. So if you can get that Wormcoil Engine train rolling, it's really backbreaking.
I like to use it to bring a Talia back out of the bin.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
just
that's just mean.
Beats that way.
I like that.
He's a good man.
Yeah, he is a good man. He gives gifts only to you.
Yes.
Well, Tuck, What's your last spice card? Are you doing it?
No. But it is played into it. So I want to talk about Mirror Matrix. So we'll get into this. Matrix is a 5-drop artifact for $2. Shocking. It's indestructible. All mirror get +1/+1, and then for 5 colorless, put a 1/1 mirror artifact creature token into play. Because I'm an idiot, I was like, oh, this is a really cute sub-theme you have with mirrors. Little did I remember that Brudiclad makes mirrors and is not a mirror itself. So I was like, oh, right, like the way the deck is supposed to be played, as opposed to just the other 7 cards in the spice profile. So I realized that literally during this very podcast. So I actually do like this a lot, right? Because even though you do want to play the 7 dwarves, right, and like that's the fun way to play this deck, there is a distinct statistical possibility that you will not see a 7 dwarf in the entirety of this deck. It may or may not happen. So the fact that you have a card that generates you tokens again, it's like all mirror get +1/+1, fine. But the fact that if you have the mana at the end of your turn, right, you at least have something to do with it. Now, granted, it's a 1/1 mirror artifact creature token
for 5 mana,
right? So it's not a great rate. However, the fact that this will stay on the board, it is highly unlikely anyone's gonna like Path to Exile or Crush Contraband this, right? Like it'll survive Vandal Blast, and then if you have to do this the old-fashioned way, where you're just beating in with a gazillion 2/1 mirrors generated by Brudiclad, it makes that way more efficient. Like a 3/2 is a big statistical difference than a 2/1, in my opinion.
Yeah, I'm. Are you okay?
I think there's another card in here that I was like also gonna talk about. I think the other one is the worst one of the 2.
Yeah, I think I'm cutting both of them, to be honest. Because yeah. So the one that Chuck was alluding to was Mirror Turbine, and the whole reason I had it in there is because initially when I built the deck, I was like, oh, that's kind of cute with Mirror Battlesphere. I'll do Mirror Battlesphere and I have all these like mirror things, and it's just like, no, that's bad, bad magic.
We'll get into why that card is not so hot very shortly.
Yeah. So, but you know, it is a juicy card. I'm glad I initially had it in. Don't know if I'm ever going to have a home for it once I cut it from the deck.
If you wanted to do also a different Brudiclad style deck, you could make it Mirror Tribal instead of 7 Dwarf Tribal or whatever, right? Because I know it's not too exciting, but there is a fair amount of mirror cards, and they do have some like strange, bizarro, suboptimal interactions together. So if you really wanted to push your luck, you could do that. But again, it's definitely a fringe. I just see this as more of like, this is like the backup to the backup strategy, right? Like it's like the third level in Inception.
It's like, well, this is a card.
I guess I'll cast this.
Table now. Why not?
All right. Well, I think that's going to wrap up the spice package, guys. Now we're going to head over to the bottle capping. These are going to be Big Tucks, Brandos, and Eyes, cuts from the deck, and recommendations that are under $5, under $50, and a personal recommendation. The only restriction is we can't talk about mana-only lands. So I'm going to start this off with a big splashy card that I'm going to cut. It just, there's only one other card in the deck that it really fits with, and by itself is a little slow for the mana. So I'm going to cut Udvara Hellkite.
I'm also going to be cutting this one too. So
yeah. So he's a 6 colorless red creature dragon, 6/6. He's a Mythic. And he has flying. Whenever a dragon you control attacks, put a 6/6 red dragon creature token with flying onto the battlefield. It's cute. And sure, I have the Dragon Master Outcast that can maybe make me some more dragons that can swing and trigger more, but that is such a niche case that I just don't think it's going to happen.
I agree with you in the fact that you have, like, if you didn't have Dragon Master Outcast in this deck, this would make more sense, but I think Dragon Master Outcast is going to do what you want more efficiently, right? Yeah.
Sure.
I think to do you could... It's cute with the Feldon. We were talking about what Feldon does on the graveyard. He'd be good there, but again, like, is it that good? And how often are you going to play this, kill it? You know what I mean? Like,
right,
yeah. Here's the thing, though. I think I found a card. It's 1 CMC less. It's still expensive, so it's big and splashy. And I think you both are going to be real hot for it. We're talking about Kiora, Bess the Sea God. It's a saga from Theros Beyond Death. So when it comes in, it creates an 8/8 blue Kraken creature token with hexproof.
Dope. Oh yeah!
Right.
Yes, I remember that. Yeah.
So, and then it's not done. Second saga, tap all non-land permanents target opponent controls. They don't untap during their controller's next untap step. And then third, gain control of target permanent and opponent controls, untap it. So off the bat, it could be a game winner. Pay 7. Now I got a bunch of 8/8 tokens with hexproof. That's great. Not evasion per se, but it's still really good. Okay, if I couldn't kill you that turn, next turn I'm gonna tap you down, and your stuff's not gonna untap, so I'll just swing in and kill you with all my 8/8s. And then if there's still another person alive, I'm going to take your best thing. We've talked about multiple ways in this deck that I can make copies of the existing creatures I have on my battlefield. So how about I take your Blightsteel Colossus that you've been threatening me with, and now I'll just make all of my stuff into Blightsteel Colossuses and kill you with 1 billion infect damage. And it's sitting at $1.50 right now.
I am. This is not only a slam dunk. I am white hot for this idea.
Yes. It might be worth a boy-yo-yo.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, I think you hit the nail on the head. Like, big splashy spell. It does something the second it enters the battlefield, and if someone keeps it around, it's just gonna keep churning out value. So what a pick! What a great pick.
Oh, thank you. I'm just all warm and fuzzy inside. Well, Brando, what's the first card you're going to cut? And what's the card you're going to add?
I already talked about how I don't like them. So I'm going to give Sky Diamond the absolute axe.
Oof.
Get it the fuck out of here. And I'm gonna go in on bringing the pain, and I'm gonna replace it with a Blade of Selves.
Oh, sure.
Ooh,
yeah.
Nice.
I like Blade of Selves. It's a equipment, and it gives the equipped creature Myriad. It costs 2 to play, 4 to equip, and if you don't know what Myriad is, it's when the creature attacks, you get a copy token of it for each creature that it's attacking. So it turns your 2/2/7 dwarf into 4 or 5 or 3/5/5/7 dwarves, which is way better,
right,
than just having one, right? Like, it's awesome. It works good with your clones. It works good if you have a non-legendary thing stolen from an opponent. It works good with everything,
right?
And again, it's on brand for the deck. Yeah, you don't get to keep the tokens for very long, but I mean, it's still going to do work. And if you're going all in on the 7 dwarf strategy, it can put you over the top.
Well, and the kind of cool thing is I've actually used Blade of Selves in my Geared deck on Geared to make copies of Geared, because there are a lot of legends that have ETB effects, and you still get the ETB even if you have to sacrifice them for the legend rule. And like, you know what? Yeah, okay, so say I'm in this niche situation, trying to, I don't know if I actually have any like legit ETB legends in the deck. Sure. I mean, I guess this would be a terrible one, but we'll just use it for an example. I mean, it could be like a Perforos. Okay, I got Perforos. I create 3 more copies of Perforos. I get all these like ETB triggers. Like, yeah, I got to sacrifice them, but that's a shit ton of damage that I'm going to be dealing to people. So yeah, that's actually a pretty interesting pick.
I like it a lot, and it's also
like 24 damage, isn't it? Copy and perf, wouldn't that be like 24 damage?
It's like the weird. It's like the weird Reaper King thing where they all see each other come in. And so then they all individually trigger. So I think the original one triggers for 6, and then each other triggers for 4. So 6, 10, 18.
Yeah.
I think it's 18.
It's an effing lot.
Yeah, it's a bunch.
May not be such a bad example at this point. Yeah.
All right. Well, Tuck, what's your under $5 cut? And I know you're cutting Advara Hellkite.
I have to switch it around a little bit. Okay, so this is my most meat and potatoes cut, if you will. So the other ones get pretty out there. So I'm very excited for those. So Uvara Hellkite, I agree. It's big, it's splashy, but it's 8 mana, doesn't win you the game, doesn't produce you a token. So we're going to cut that in like a third. I think a card in here that's awesome is Sai, Master Thopterist. So 2 colorless in a blue for 1/4 legendary creature, human artificer. It's a rare. You can get it for like $3, just under that. So whenever you cast an artifact spell, create a 1/1 colorless Thopter artifact creature token with flying, right? So you have 30 artifacts in here. This gives you all the tokens, but more importantly, we talked about how like sometimes you kind of get stymied with the card draw. Here is colorless and a blue, sack 2 artifacts, draw a card. So if you have like an army of mirrors or an army of whatever, and you're like, oh, so I'm out of combat tricks, I'm out of things to do, I have mana left up at the end of my turn, now I can start sacking them, draw into cards, draw into my big boys to plop down, and then potentially win the next turn. So it's not like, this is something that arguably could be put into like most blue artifact decks as well, so it's not very exciting, but again, like I feel like it fits the deck very well. Creating tokens and being able to draw cards, you're gonna have plenty of targets for this in the game, and it cuts the converted mana cost down even further.
Yeah, I mean, I guess, it's like Forrest Gump would say, there's not a lot to say about that. It is very meat and potatoes.
Trust me, they get better.
I mean, I guess, worst case scenario, you cast Brudiclad, you make a Thopter, and then at the beginning of combat, you make your mirror. And so right there, you can pay 2 mana and sack both the things that just got created to draw a card. It's all right. I'm not excited.
Well, I got some
excited.
juicer ones coming up here, so just wait.
Yeah. Drawing cards is important, but it's not necessarily the most exciting thing you can do.
Like I said,
you know what I mean?
Yeah, that's fair.
This is
hence why we didn't talk about Ristic Study.
Yeah, come on.
Exactly.
Like I said, this is like the bar down the street that you go to get, if I may, poutine. Whereas some of the ones down the way might be something that you have to go out of town for. So we'll get to those when we can.
Ooh. All right, let's go into that for the under 50 stuff. So I talked about it earlier. I'm going to cut Mirror Matrix. Just not there for me. But I'm going to talk about a card that I believe is banned and modern, but everyone wants to come back. So we're going to cut that card for Splinter Twin.
Okay, all right.
Coming in right around $10. It's 2 colorless red enchantment aura, enchant creature. Enchanted creature has tap, put a token that's a copy of this creature onto the battlefield. The token has haste, exile at the beginning of the next end step. Once again, this could be a way to where if I have a bunch of BS 1/1s, but I got this 10/10 Eldrazi, but someone, paths to exile the token, boom, throw it on him, make a copy, now I got all my 10/10s. Or, even more flavor win, a 7 Dwarf that I couldn't make into a token. Make everything into that. So I thought it would be great to be able to have a way to throw an enchantment, because once again, we always talk about how hard enchantments are to remove, at least in our meta, outside of just massive board wipes. Throw it on a creature and be able to, at willy-nilly, tap it and create more tokens that are copies of it.
I like it. Yeah, I think... I know this card is banned for a reason. It's also $9 for a reason. But I don't think there's any sort of... Because, it doesn't go infinite with Kiki G. I like this idea because it does exactly what the deck wants, but doesn't break it, right? Yeah, so I like it. I like it a bunch. The fact that it's an aura where you have to enchant a creature is a little squishy, but again, being able to churn out a token, even if it is a big creature, just getting the token on the battlefield for 4 immediately is well worth it, right?
Yeah, and, there's lots of stuff in here that it'd be kind of cool to just make a copy of. Maybe I make a copy of Wurmcoil Engine or make a copy of Mere Battlesphere. So, yeah, this is, I guess, my more meat and potatoes pick. So... All right, Brando, what do you got for us? What are you going to cut, and what are you going to add for under $50?
Actually, it occurs to me, I have to go back on you guys. I screwed up your whole formula. I'm very sorry.
What?
The Blade of Selves. The Blade of Selves is $11, and that was my high end.
Blasphemy!
It was the one that was up on my screen. I got excited, so I'm sorry about that.
So it's okay. So I noticed that, but I was like, maybe he's thinking Canadian dollars.
Yeah.
It's like
all
what,
right.
75 cents. We'll give him a break.
Yeah. It's one of those things. So I guess my jank one is going back on. I'm going to raise the CMC. I'm going to play an enchantment, and I'm going to cut an enchantment that always feels bad when I play it because I've never seen it do anything, and I have played it so many times, begging the magic gods to let it be good, and it never is. So I'm going to cut Followed Footsteps.
That's my next one.
Because it never works. It never works ever.
Completely agree.
There we go. And I'm going to put in something that could work, but may or may not work in Mirror March.
But you're saying there's a chance.
There is a 50-50
You want
chance.
to do some flippy coiny, don't you?
Mirror March is an enchantment. It costs 46 American cents. That's about 18 Canadian dollars. So I'm still on the budget here. It costs red 5, and whenever a non-token creature comes into play under your control, you flip a coin, and if you win the flip, you get a token copy of that creature, and then you do it again. And then at the end of turn, you exile the creatures. But you could hypothetically just army in a can your 7 dwarves, get 7/7 dwarves, and just bash somebody's whole, just speed bag their ball sack right off their body, right? Like Mirror March can be, it can be just nothing. Like you basically paid 7 and then discarded a card, or it can just straight up win you the game, and you can brag about it forever. If you win a game with a Mirror March, you can never play the deck again. I mean, I proved what I need to prove.
It's been retired.
It's the and one. You make the big ass dunk, and then everybody leaves the stadium, and just like the game's over.
Yeah, we're good.
Doesn't matter what time it was.
I've had enough. It's time to go. And that's what Mirror March gives you. It gives that psychological edge.
Love it. It's a risk one.
So it's interesting that you guys say followed footsteps never works. I've actually had it work every time I play it.
You are the luckiest person on the planet, because I've had this in so many decks, and it has never done jack squat. I've never had something to target. It gets blown up because it goes the next turn cycle over. This deck has just done nothing for me, or that card has done nothing for me.
And you could target the most innocuous piece of crap creature ever, right? You target anything, and they just kill it.
They're like,
it's
no.
like, you want more of those? No.
They sack it, whatever. Yeah, it's.
Hey, now you guys do realize you can do this on your opponent's creatures and make copies of your opponent's stuff.
But I'm saying, the thing I don't like about it is that you have to wait for it, right? So, in my opinion, I think Splinter Twin is a better option, right? Because you can do that immediately. Right, assuming yours is intact.
Sure.
Like, that's what's always killed me with it. You're paying 5 mana for something that, even if it's on your creature or another thing, you have to wait an entire turn cycle to pay off once.
And it probably won't.
Yeah, but I don't know. I mean, I feel like by that logic, we should be like cutting teal on a summoner. I mean, there's a lot of cards in here that you kind of have to wait the rotation. The Thopter symbol,
I will agree.
You have to wait a rotation.
So that's a fair point. I will agree that this is all. I made a note of this because I'm completely biased because this has never worked for me. So
right.
So I literally made a note of that. It said that this is a bias cut.
Fine. So we know you're cutting followed footsteps. Okay. What are you adding for under $50? And apparently you're going to get me a rock hard.
This is a crazy one. Okay. I'm going way off the reservation for this. All right.
Oh baby.
All right.
It's a new card. Yeah, we're breaking the color pie. We're putting in time
Altar of the Brood, I believe.
Right. That's the worst timeline. Okay. Here we go. I think that Shark Typhoon would be a very interesting card this deck.
Oh my god.
Here's why. Shark Typhoon is a 5 colorless and a blue enchantment. It is a rare for Mycoria. Whenever you cast a non-creature spell, create an XX blue shark creature token with flying, where X of that spell is converted mana cost. We already talked that you have 30 artifacts in the deck, right? So even if it is a 2/2 or 3/3 flyer, you now have turned all your things into something that has evasion, right? So that I think that's like, okay. And it's expensive, so whatever, right? So that's something. However, where I really think this gets interesting is its second ability. Cycling, X, a colorless and a blue. X colorless blue, discard this card, draw a card. When you cycle Shark Typhoon, create an XX blue shark creature token with flying. You've always talked about how at the end of your turn, you might have piles of mana, right? So since you can wait on the cycling ability, you have Brudiclad out, right? You have other things going on. Wait till the end of the person's next turn, cycle it for 6, whatever, right? Draw your card, and also get your giant evading beater on the battlefield ready for the next turn when you do your Splinter Twin or whatever to fill out the rest of the things. So
no, you don't say giant evasion beater. You call it by its name.
It's a shark.
That is Sharknado.
It's Sharknado. So again, is it a crazy pick? Yes. Is it a good pick? Maybe. Yes. But is it a big duck pick? Absolutely. So again, like, I think it's really overcosted, and most of the artifacts you're playing or most of the non-creature artifacts you're playing are like, 2 to 5-ish. But if you can get the value off of that, you're creating tokens, and you have the ability to do this thing before your next turn and really just dump out something huge. So it's a crazy one.
And it doesn't make you a liar.
Yeah.
I'm playing all permanents in my deck. I have nothing to do on your turn. People will take that to heart and ignore you. And they will say, oh, we've got a bunch of mana open. What's he going to do with it? Make a mirror token? What a loser. And then instead, right, you get the Sharknado token. And who's laughing then?
Yeah, who's laughing now? So again, it's a nuts one, but I think it actually has a home in this deck. And I may have just been studying too much.
No, you haven't.
And it's crazy. I can't believe it's like almost $5.
I think it's doing stuff. So it's a cycle card, and the cycle decks right now are white hot, right, with the new commander that got printed.
Yeah.
And those same cycle decks come. Some of them, like I've seen in my cycling deck, I think I have 5 non-creature cards, right? So the fact that you can cycle and you're going to be, oh, I'm sorry, I have 5 creature cards or whatever, right? So it's giving you those blockers.
Yeah.
It's kind of like there's that other one that creates like the XX artifact creatures. But anyway, so it's a good...
Unless we forget the cult classic Sharknado is clearly driving up the price.
Indeed. So, anyways, that's...
Jesus.
It is really bad. It is, like, unwatchable.
Hey, they cut a shark in half.
Okay.
I think there's 2 sequels, too, which is nuts. So, anyways, moving along.
So, A, I like it. B, there's extended artwork for it. So you know I love some alternate art. So I might have to do it. All right. Well, now we're to the no budget piece. So you know how I like to break a budget. So I'm actually going to cut Mere Turbine. I alluded to it earlier, but I didn't actually read it off. It's a 5 colorless artifact, and it says tap, add a 1/1 Mere artifact creature token onto the battlefield, or tap itself and tap 5 untapped Mirror you control. Search your library for a Mirror creature card, put it onto the battlefield, and shelf your library. Literally, this was in here to tutor up Mirror Battlesphere. There's no other Mirror to get. It's very, very janky. But what we're going to do is put in a card. I want to make sure.
You got to make sure you have the right. Oh my gosh. It should be. Trust me, some of the things he pulls in is awesome.
We're breaking the bank at a solid 25 cents. We're talking about Back from the Brink. 4 colorless blue enchantment. Exile a creature card from your graveyard and pay its mana cost. Put a token onto the battlefield that's a copy of that card. Activate this ability only when you can do a
That's really good.
That's pretty good.
That's really good. You're gonna have
it's one more CMC. I'm gonna have piles of stuff in there because people are gonna be board wiping me left and right. And also,
there's a better chance that you're gonna have 2 dwarves in your graveyard than on the battlefield. So here you go. This is genius, and I think the thing I like the most about it is you can do it multiple times because there's other cards there's other cards that you get 1 a turn and it exiles. But the fact that this card leaves that a lot of those other cards like exile the card and you don't get it back, right? Or like the token will leave battlefield at the end of turn or whatever, right? Like Seance, I think is what I'm thinking of.
Yeah.
Whereas this one, you can do it multiple times a turn if you have the money, if you have the mana for it, right? Which is a great sync, and that token stays no matter what. So I think that's awesome. I think it's a great pick.
That is very cool. That's the one with the people on it and they're screaming and they're like, "Oh my god!" Is that Back from the Brink? Or is it like?
I mean, this almost kind of looks more like the end of Die Hard when he's falling off the building, except this time he's like falling into like a pit.
There's it's like
something. Oh god, the flavor text on Innistrad: death is just a career change.
Nice. Well, if that's the case, I have died about 6 times. So,
I got you a couple better there.
Makes a lot of sense.
Oh man! All right. Well, Brando, knowing that you could break the bank if you wanted to, what are you going to cut? And what are you going to add to this deck?
I'm bringing my meat and potatoes deck to this one, and I'm cutting a card that I love cutting from decks. I love cutting this card from every deck I ever see it in.
I can see it
because I hate.
It's probably Ristic Study.
And hate Coat of Arms.
The card that should not be named.
And I told you we're going to get to it. I don't like it because, again, I play in a meta where there's lots of tribal synergies, and you can drop this and just eat shit immediately.
Yeah.
Like, the risky ones are slightly bigger, and the rest of the table's like, yeah, bro, cool story. I'm playing a bigger tribe than you, so I guess you're just going to die now. Like, I have more snakes than you have goblins, Brando. Whoops. And you just end up eating a whole big plate of shit. And so I'm replacing it with the $8, that's American, so I don't even want to think about how much that would cost us up here in Canada, for a Spark Double. And it's meat and potatoes.
Yeah.
Okay.
It copies everything in the deck, plus your Planeswalkers. And we talked earlier in the show about that Tezzeret being like just a great card draw engine and token maker. And if you have two of them, that makes them 100% better. And it's just a cool card, and I don't know it sees the play that it kind of deserves because it only copies your stuff, but you only really want to copy your stuff in this particular case because it's there to make your value stuff better.
And similar to Home of the Host, it also takes away the legendary ability, right? So if you want to make tokens of this thing now, then you're also off to the races there.
Yeah.
Well, and the interesting thing is it's only been out for a little over a year, and it's already in 6% of all EDH decks per EDH rec. So, I mean, I would actually say it's probably seeing a fair amount of play. The interesting thing, though, with this deck, I'm trying to, think about it. It's kind of making me want to put that in and also put in a pet card of mine, Agent of Treachery. There was a tear where I was putting that in every deck I could. But no, that seems really interesting, and I think I can see how that'd be your pet card because, like you said, you have a lot of legends in your deck, so it's like I need ways to copy them and have them not immediately eat shit and die. I mean, I guess having an additional Padim is always not like the end of the world. Like you said, the Brudiclad train, just start effing making Brudiclads on Brudiclads. That's kind of cool. I mean, heck, even having an additional Perforos wouldn't be the end of the world. Yeah, that's one I'm actually gonna have to consider.
Like it.
I don't know if I'm gonna cut Coat of Arms for it,
because I have that card.
Well, so in our meta, we only have 3 tribal players, like deck wise. Yeah, I mean, think about it, Tuck. We got Reese the Redeemed. We got 2 Goblin decks from Duffman.
Yeah.
And then, I mean, are you really going to count my Sliver deck? Probably not.
What about your advisor deck?
You have an elf deck,
no one's
but you
gonna
also
count
don't play that. So,
well, and I have a gazillion.
Well, I mean, it's hard when you have 30-something decks.
I mean, that doesn't mean anything. So, but dedicate, to your point of dedicated decks that people are playing consistently. There's only a handful. Yeah,
there's 3. Yeah, so I think that's where we're a little lucky. Unlike it sounds like you guys up in Canada,
just the
sounds like you're just plagued by these tribes
everywhere, man. But now that I know that, if I'm ever in KC, I'll come down there and I'll make you pay for the coat of arms.
Please do.
All right. Well, Tuck, you're gonna wrap up this episode.
I'm going off the rails here. Okay, we're getting nuts. I just couldn't help myself. Okay, so I also am going to count Mirror Turbine. I like the fact that you can tap it for.
What did you just call it?
Or turbine, I guess. Turbine. Yeah, I guess it's an
This is Kansas, sir. This is Kansas.
Whatever. Mirror Turbine.
Meyer Turbine.
Mean Turbine with my poon team.
I heard you and your cousin went down to the Mirror Turbine last weekend. You having your time down there? So, anyways, I'm cutting Mirror Turbine. Mostly we talked about it. There's one tutor option for it, and granted, it's a good one. All right, so we are gonna get a followed footsteps that, if it resolves, will win you the game. So we are talking our pal Mechanized Production. For $5, you get this mythic rare for 2 that costs 2 colorless and 2 blue. It's Enchantment Aura. Enchant artifact creature you control. At the beginning of your upkeep, create a token that's a copy of Enchanted Artifact. If you control 8 or more artifacts of the same name as one another, you win the game. Give me 8 walkers, I'll give you the city. The risk reward on this is off the charts, right? And there is a very slim chance that anyone's going to let this come to fruition. However, if it's late enough in the game, we've already talked about how enchantment removal is at a premium. And we've talked about like the Dark Side Extortionists of the worlds, creating a bunch of Mirrors of the worlds, creating a bunch of Thopters of the worlds, right? There's a very good chance that you're going to have many a juicy target for this, right? And short of like a board wipe or removal, this has a chance to outright win you the game, right? And we also talked about how this could, worst case scenario, this is just another juicy target for one of those precious few enchantment removals or artifact. If it's on the artifact, it's on, right? But that frees you up to have your shared animosities running rampant and so on and so forth. So again, it's a huge risk card. I love cards that say you win the game on them, and I just cannot help myself. You already have one in here with Maraudin Besiege, which is a classic. So why not double down on it?
No, that's fair. I think the only reason I didn't put it in is because it is at beginning of upkeep, and you have to enchant an artifact, and artifact removal is pretty much in almost all of the colors. It's in some way, shape, or form. So that's probably the only reason I didn't have it in there. But if it was something like I'm gonna swap Mirrodin Besiege for that, just try it out, see which one. I think I'd be fine with that. Just because, honestly, we've had so many recommendations that I want to try. I'm going to run out of cards to cut without dipping into my precious seven Dwarves. So Brando, have you ever seen Mechanized Production win games up in where you guys are at?
One guy that tried it once, but as you said, it was stopped. Yeah. It was quashed immediately. Yeah. But I've seen it do some work. Like, I've seen some people get a couple of tokens. I think it was something ridiculous, too. I think they got a couple extra Sol rings or something out of it. Yeah. Like, they got something unreal out of it before we could kill it. I've never seen it actually win a game.
Friend of the show, Mikhail, I think he has this in 2 decks. I think he has this in his Brudiclad and in his Brea deck. And I think I've seen it won off one of them. And it was very upsetting.
Yeah. It is one of those, you had it coming. Like, you deserve
exactly.
It, right?
Yeah.
So you can't even be mad.
And so I did want to do a special shout out for a card. Get your guys' quick thoughts on it. And it was only because the cuts or the ads that I had were just so good. I couldn't substitute this over there. But what do you guys think of Dance of Many for this deck? Blue enchantment. When it ETBs, create a token that's a copy of target non-token creature. When Dance of Many leaves the battlefield, exile the token. When the token leaves the battlefield, sacrifice Dance of Many. Beginning of your upkeep, sacrifice Dance of Many unless you play blue. I really read this card as pay blue, enter the battlefield, make a copy of the scariest thing, and I immediately go to combat.
I think that this deck is bounced, and this is a card I really like, and it's kind of bounced around decks. But again, I think you've really hit the nail on the head. Where like the fact that it's 2 blue and it targets anything that's not a token, right? Like, and creates a token of it. So I like it a lot. Honestly, I would, because one I was on the thing was Cryptoplasm. Since Cryptoplasm itself doesn't become a token, this does, right? So I think that could be something juicy if you want. So I like Dance of the Many. I like it a lot. I think it's really, really good in this deck. I would try it out, man. For 61 cents, you can find a home for it.
Let me hit you guys with some truth. I legit have one of these in the mail. Just went out today. I just bought one for my Brudiclad deck. So,
hey!
So
oh, wow.
Nailed it.
Compare notes and see how good it is, because I'm obviously a fan of this.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, I'm gonna be excited to hear about it, because I was doing the research on it, and it's just like, back from the brink and Splinter Twin and Kiora Bessis, I was just like, these are too good not to talk about. But I was just like, I've been struggling with this card all day. Like, I really want to get their thoughts on this, because this seems really good in Brudiclad. Like, it's kind of like how, Brando, a lot of times for me, I look at Coat of Arms as pay 5 mana, win the game. A lot like, your Crater Hoof, I'm going to pay 8 mana, win the game. I almost feel like Dance of Many in this deck is pay 2 mana, win the game.
Absolutely.
The fact that the fact it's any non-token creature that you control or don't, and Brudiclad can give it haste. That is critical. So yeah, I'm on board with this. Full stop.
There's no reason to not play this card in this deck. Like, you could think about it in other decks, like, ooh, I could play it. Like, there's no reason to not have this in here. There's no reason.
You know what else there's no reason for the fact that it's the end of the episode, and as promised, guys, here's some details about our giveaway from our sponsor, Level 1 Game Shop. We're beginning to give away a Chandra spellbook, and to enter, it's super simple. Just send Brando a vial of your blood. I haven't done one of these bits in like 9 months.
Does it feel good? It has to feel good, right?
Oh, it feels all right. Did your room get real dark?
It sure did.
Or what are you, the Dark Knight?
I need to change the settings.
What's odd is your window is lit up.
I need to go turn on my. I need to go turn on my light, and I adjusted the screen so because it was hurting my eyes. So.
Oh. I thought you had a clap on, clap off.
I wish.
Clap on.
I also need to go and turn on the air conditioning because I am sweating.
Oh, God. Well, guys, if you want to keep helping promote content and maybe help pay Tuck's AC bill, just help enter and help promote the content. You're going to get an entry for every interaction you do with us on social media, and we will announce the winner on MTG Action 4 News July 7th, and social media soon after. And yes, we're doing giveaways every single month like this. It could be a sweet little spell book. It could be a sweet little precon. Heck, it could even be a custom deck that the CMDTower crew puts together. It really just depends on what Level 1 Game Shop can do. But you know what? We'd also love positive feedback on whatever platform you're listening to us or watching us on. If you enjoyed it, leave that 5-star review to make others in the algorithm find us. If you hate it, I know 2 weeks ago it was you had to hit up Dana Roach and tell him how much he sucked. Today you have to hit up CCO Nation and tell him how much Brando sucked. It's never our fault. It's always the guess.
Hey man, I'll take it. You can blame me.
I can take it.
Yeah.
If you guys want to find out more ways you get entered into the contest and get a hold of us, here's how you can do that. You can reach me at Mr. Combo number 5 on Twitter. I'll spell that except for the 5. Big Tuck, where can they begrudgingly
I'm still there on the Tweeterverse, at Big Tuck tweeting on Twitter. You can also email me at bigtuck@cmdtower.com. No one does that because I guess email is the way of the past, so here we are.
Brando, where can people reach you?
They can get a hold of me on Twitter at CCOBrando. You can send me an email at commandercookout@gmail.com. We actually do check it. We also don't get a whole lot of
It's shocking, isn't it?
But by all means, I love hearing from people. If I do suck, let me know. If you think I can do better. If you think I can't do any better, well, you too.
You can reach our main account at CMDTower on Twitter as well. You can go to our website, cmdtower.com. Basically, you can find us anywhere if you just type in Curse of Opulence, Mimic Vat, Desolation Twin, Tower.
He's on fire today. He's on fire today.
No thought process, just nailing it.
If you want to engage our awesome production team for your own future projects, how would they do that? Squeeze.
Oh, you can find me on Facebook or Instagram at RichKS Records. And I'm done with this bit. You can all f*** off. Don't email me.
All right,
I'm
easy
out.
enough.
Man, he just told us. What the hell?
I mean, he does music and podcasts. It does have a full studio if you want to get yelled at and come to the KC Metro area. If you want to support the show as well as some of our sponsors with your orders you're already doing, just head over to level1gameshop.com. When you place an order in the order notes, just type in CMD Tower so they know that you came from the Collective. Outside of their own storefront, they also have a TCG store with over 99% accuracy rating and very competitive prices. And they also do have the sweet CMD Tower playmat and sleeves, as well as everything else you need from a board game and Magic perspective. Another way you can support us is head over to our Patreon, patreon.com/CMDTower. We have several different reward tiers from, as we talked about, that Discord access to getting us to our stretch goal to get guest spots on the Brews and Builds. As well as every tier is going to give you additional entries into the monthly giveaways. And of course, they get a Pink Royal for the music that you guys provide in the episodes. So Big Tuck, Brando, here we are, the end of the episode, Brudiclad's Army of Dwarves. Brando, what did you think? How does this compare to yours? Where, did we really hit the nail on the head with it, or does this thing a hot steaming pile of trash?
I think it's a hot steaming pile of trash that I would love to play, and I would love to be in a game with. It's just like mine.
It's the best way.
Plays a bunch of tokens. Yeah, right. This is obviously a deck that would lead to incredibly fun games and interactions that would be like mind bending, or just it leads to those crazy board states that you love to see, that you only get in Commander. And that's quintessentially Commander is what we say in Commander Cookout. And I think this is right in there, and this one gets full marks from me. I love it.
Awesome.
Like I said up front, this is right up there with my favorite decks of yours. This and Advisors are probably pretty close, to be honest, because they both kind of do crazy things.
Wow.
But yeah, I really like the fact that there's no real infinite combos in it, so that's a treat. I also like the fact that you really stick to your guns with the keeping the only permanents, keeping the 7 dwarves in, right? Like a lot of people who play this would probably be like, well, those are the first things to be cut, but you're like, no, I'm staying it in and I'm doing it. I think think this is also a fun deck for people to pilot, right? Like, I haven't been able to yet, but I certainly would like to at some point. Just like, does a lot of fun things, breaking the color pie. I'm on board. This has been one of the favorite decks of yours to talk about.
Yeah, I'll say for me, it's a fun deck to think about and play. I do get a little bit of frustrated because I am a little bit of a spike myself. I do like to have very tuned decks, and this is obviously not a optimized tuned deck by any means. And so, it puts me out of my comfort zone. But, Brando, you kind of hit the nail on the head with it, to where you only can get this in Commander. You play Modern or any 60 card format, you basically have like 10 deck lists that you get to build, and if you don't build those 10, you're just going to get butt humped every time you go to a table, and it's never going to be fun. At least with Commander, there's like a billion different ways that you could build stuff, and possibly change it a little bit, put yourself out of your comfort zone. And heck, who would run a Is It deck and not have Cyclonic Rift or Brainstorm or even a counter spell in it? Really, for the most part, probably no one, unless you just can't afford the Cyclonic Rift. So it's been fun. I do get a little bored sometimes. Go ahead.
I just thought of something, and this is topical. The banned companion, Lutri. The one that was banned because it would go in every single.
It wouldn't go in this one.
Not only does it not go in here, it can't be the companion of this deck. And if you did put it in here, it wouldn't do anything. That is incredible.
Oh, God. Sheldon, do you hear that? Do you hear
Sheldon's rolling over in his desk chair.
We got there.
Oh, my God. That's genius. Brando, funny side note about that. Marketing Ross, part of our collective, when Lutri got previewed, literally was so excited because he was like, dude, Otter Tribal, I'm all for it. Within 5 minutes, his dreams were crushed. And he was so sad.
That's a bleak one.
All right. Well, Brando, appreciate you coming out, helping out the collective with this. It's been great fun. Hopefully, we'll have you on again in the future where we'll just hear about another one of your weird, janky dot decks. So,
hey, thanks for having me, guys. It was a great time, and I will totally come back if you ever need me again.
Awesome. Well, all right, everyone. Have a good night. Peace out.